In 1983, a young street vendor in Beijing helped a lost American tourist find his way back to his hotel. This simple act of kindness would unknowingly spark a chain of events that would transform a small fishing village into a thriving city, save an endangered species, and ultimately change how we understand human connection. But how could one brief interaction between strangers reshape the destiny of millions? This is the story of invisible threads, the hidden connections that weave through our world, creating patterns so vast and intricate that they challenge everything we think we know about cause and effect. Think about the last time you helped a stranger. Maybe you held a door open, gave directions, or simply smiled at someone who looked like they were having a rough day. In that moment, it probably felt insignificant, just another fleeting interaction in a world full of passing connections. But what if I told you that these seemingly minor moments are actually part of something much larger, something so profound that it's reshaping our understanding of human influence and social dynamics? Scientists are now discovering that these small interactions create what they call connection cascades, ripple effects that multiply and expand in ways we never imagined possible. Like a stone thrown into a pond, each tiny action sends waves spreading outward, intersecting with other waves, creating patterns that can reshape entire communities, influence global decisions, and even alter the course of history. But here's where things get truly fascinating. These connection cascades don't move in predictable straight lines. They branch, loop back, and interweave in ways that defy our traditional understanding of cause and effect. That smile you gave to a stranger this morning, it might have given them the confidence to ace a job interview, leading them to move to a new city where they'll start a community project that will eventually impact thousands of lives. The story of the Beijing street vendor illustrates this perfectly. His simple act of helping a lost tourist led to a friendship, which led to a business partnership, which opened new trade routes, which brought unexpected prosperity to a coastal region, which created environmental conservation efforts that saved a local species from extinction. Each step in this chain seems random when viewed in isolation, but together they reveal a hidden pattern of interconnected influence that spans decades and continents. Modern neuroscience is revealing something even more remarkable. Our brains are literally wired for these connections in ways we're only beginning to understand. When we interact with others, our neural patterns synchronize in subtle but measurable ways. We're constantly engaging in a complex dance of mutual influence, even when we're completely unaware of it. Every conversation, every gesture, every moment of eye contact creates microscopic changes in our brain chemistry that can cascade into profound transformations. This discovery has led researchers to a startling conclusion. We're not just connected to others, we're interconnected in ways so fundamental that the line between self and other may be more fluid than we ever imagined. Each of us exists not as an isolated individual, but as a node in a vast network of influence, constantly sending and receiving signals that shape not just our own reality, but the collective reality we all share. As this story unfolds, we'll explore how these invisible threads weave through every aspect of our lives, from the smallest personal interactions to the largest global movements. We'll see how understanding these connections can transform our approach to relationships, work, community, and even our own personal growth. Most importantly, we'll discover how conscious awareness of these threads gives us the power to create positive change in ways we never thought possible. So the next time you interact with someone, remember, you're not just having a conversation or sharing a moment. You're creating a thread in the grand tapestry of human experience, one that could weave its way through countless lives, connecting hearts and minds in ways you may never know. And in this vast network of invisible threads, every one of us has the power to create patterns of profound beauty and meaning. This is just the beginning of our journey into understanding the remarkable power of human connection. Are you ready to discover how deep these invisible threads really go? The science of connection goes deeper than we ever imagined. In a groundbreaking experiment conducted at Harvard University, researchers discovered something extraordinary. When two people engage in genuine conversation, their hearts actually begin to beat in sync. Their breathing patterns align, and their brain waves dance in a mysterious harmony. This physiological synchronization happens automatically, beyond our conscious awareness, revealing a level of human connection that exists beneath the surface of our everyday interactions. But this synchronization isn't just a curiosity of biology. It's a window into understanding how profound connections shape our world in ways we're only beginning to comprehend. Consider what happened in a small town in Minnesota, where a local librarian named Sarah started a simple hello project. Every morning, she would greet each person who entered the library by name, making eye contact and sharing a genuine moment of connection. Within 6 months, something remarkable began to happen. The library became more than just a place for books. It transformed into the heart of the community. People who had lived in the same town for years, but never spoken, began forming friendships. Reading groups evolved into community action committees. Senior citizens started mentoring troubled teens who came to study after school. The ripple effects spread beyond the library walls, leading to decreased loneliness among elderly residents, improved academic performance in local schools, and even a measurable drop in neighborhood crime rates. This transformation didn't happen because of any grand initiative or significant funding. It grew from thousands of tiny moments of connection, each one strengthening the invisible threads that bind communities together. The power of these connections becomes even more apparent when we examine them through the lens of network science. Network scientists have discovered that human social networks follow specific patterns that mirror those found in nature. Just as a forest depends on an intricate web of mycorrhizal fungi connecting trees and sharing resources, human communities thrive on networks of social connections that distribute information, support, and influence. These networks aren't random. They have a mathematical elegance that suggests they're fundamental to how life itself organizes and sustains itself. What's particularly fascinating is how these networks amplify small actions. When you make a genuine connection with someone, you're not just touching one life, you're influencing their entire network. The person you encourage today might go home and have more patience with their children, who in turn might be kinder to their classmates, creating a cascade of positive interactions that ripple through countless other networks. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. These networks don't just transmit positive influences, they can also amplify negative ones. A study at Yale revealed that emotional states can spread through social networks like viruses, affecting people up to 3 degrees of separation away. This means your mood can influence not just your friends, but your friends' friends' friends, people you've never even met. This discovery carries profound implications for how we understand responsibility and influence. Every interaction we have, every emotional state we carry into our encounters with others has the potential to affect hundreds or even thousands of lives. It's a sobering thought, but also an empowering one. It means that each of us has far more power to create positive change than we realize. The key lies in understanding that these networks operate on multiple levels simultaneously. On the surface, we see the obvious connections: family, friends, colleagues. But beneath these visible ties run deeper currents of influence, shared values, emotional resonances, unconscious mimicry of behaviors and attitudes. These deeper connections often prove more powerful than the obvious ones, shaping our choices and behaviors in ways we rarely recognize. Consider how ideas spread through these networks. When a new concept or behavior enters a social network, it doesn't spread evenly, like ripples in a pond. Instead, it follows what network scientists call tipping point patterns. For a long time, nothing seems to happen. The idea or behavior remains confined to a small group. But then, suddenly, it reaches a critical mass and spreads explosively through the network, creating rapid, transformative change. This understanding gives us a new perspective on personal growth and social change. Instead of trying to force massive transformations through sheer will or resources, we can focus on strengthening the quality of our connections, knowing that positive changes will spread naturally through these enhanced networks. It's not about trying to reach everyone. It's about creating authentic connections that allow positive influences to flow naturally. As we delve deeper into these invisible threads, we begin to see that they form not just a network, but a living system, one that responds and adapts to our conscious participation. Every genuine smile, every moment of true listening, every act of kindness becomes a thread strengthening this vast tapestry of human connection. And as these threads multiply and interweave, they create something far greater than the sum of their parts, a collective intelligence and resilience that might just be the key to solving our most pressing challenges. What makes some connections more powerful than others? This question led researchers at Stanford University to make a remarkable discovery. They found that the strength of a connection isn't determined by its duration or frequency, but by its authenticity, the degree to which people feel truly seen, heard, and valued in the interaction. This finding challenges everything we thought we knew about building meaningful relationships and creating positive change in the world. In Tokyo, a fascinating example of this principle emerged in an unlikely place. A busy subway station. A station manager named Hiroshi noticed that during rush hour, people's stress levels would spike, leading to increased conflicts and even health emergencies. Instead of implementing strict rules or complex crowd management systems, he tried something surprisingly simple. He trained his staff to make brief but genuine eye contact with commuters while checking their tickets, adding a small nod of acknowledgement. The results were astonishing. Within weeks, The atmosphere in the station began to shift. Blood pressure measurements taken from regular commuters showed significant decreases. Reports of aggressive incidents dropped by 67%. Most remarkably, these effects lasted long after people left the station. Commuters reported being more patient with their families in the evening and more productive at work. One small gesture, multiplied across thousands of interactions, had created a ripple effect that transformed not just the station, but the lives of everyone who passed through it. This phenomenon, which scientists now call micro-moment resonance, reveals something profound about human connection. Our brains are constantly scanning our environment for signs of social safety or threat. When we experience even a brief moment of genuine connection, it triggers a cascade of neurochemical changes that reduce stress, enhance immune function, and improve cognitive performance. These benefits don't just affect us individually. They spread through our social networks, creating what researchers call connection clusters of enhanced well-being. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. The power of these authentic connections isn't just about making people feel better. It's about fundamentally changing how we process and respond to the world around us. Neuroscientists studying the brain activity of people engaged in genuine connections have discovered something remarkable. These interactions actually enhance our ability to empathize with others and make more ethical decisions. This finding has enormous implications for everything from education to business to social justice. When people feel authentically connected, they're more likely to consider the long-term consequences of their actions, to help others, even at personal cost, and to work toward collective, rather than just individual benefits. It's as if genuine connection activates parts of our brain that help us see the bigger picture and our role within it. Consider what happened in a struggling neighborhood in Baltimore. A community organizer named Marcus didn't start with grand plans for urban renewal or economic development. Instead, he began by creating opportunities for authentic connection between neighbors. He organized story circles where people could share their experiences, hopes, and fears in small groups. These weren't just feel-good sessions. They were laying the groundwork for something much more powerful. As people began to feel truly heard and valued, their relationship to the community began to change. Property owners who had been planning to sell and move away decided to stay and invest in improvements. Teenagers who had been causing trouble started volunteering to help elderly neighbors. Small businesses reported increased customer loyalty and began hiring locally. The crime rate dropped, not because of increased policing, but because people felt personally invested in their community's well-being. The transformation wasn't immediate or dramatic. It happened gradually, through countless small moments of connection that slowly rewove the social fabric of the neighborhood. But the changes were deep and lasting, demonstrating how authentic connections can create resilient communities capable of solving their own problems. This pattern of transformation through authentic connection appears repeatedly across different scales and contexts. In schools where teachers are trained to create genuine connections with students, academic performance improves and behavioral problems decrease. In hospitals where staff members take time for authentic interactions with patients, recovery rates increase and medication needs decrease. In businesses where leaders prioritize real connection with employees, productivity rises and turnover falls. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of this phenomenon is how it changes our understanding of influence and power. Traditional models of change focus on top-down authority or resource allocation. The science of authentic connection suggests a different approach. When we strengthen the quality of connections within a system, the system naturally evolves toward more positive outcomes. It's not about forcing change. It's about creating the conditions that allow positive change to emerge organically. Preparing and narrating this theory took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the theory. This insight offers a new perspective on personal and social transformation. Instead of trying to change others through argument or persuasion, we can focus on creating authentic connections that naturally lead to shared understanding and aligned action. Instead of pushing against resistance, we can build bridges of genuine relationship that make resistance unnecessary. But what happens when these invisible threads of connection begin to fray? In our increasingly digital world, we're discovering something both fascinating and concerning. While technology has made it easier than ever to connect with others, many of these connections lack the depth that creates true resonance. This paradox emerged starkly in a remarkable study conducted across 3 generations in Silicon Valley, the heart of our technological revolution. Researchers found that despite having hundreds or even thousands of social media connections, many people reported feeling more isolated than ever. However, hidden within this troubling trend, they discovered something unexpected: pockets of profound connection emerging in surprising ways. These connection oases revealed a new dimension to how meaningful relationships adapt and thrive in the digital age. Take the story of Emma, a teenager who struggled with severe social anxiety. Traditional therapy hadn't helped much, but everything changed when she joined an online gaming community. Unlike typical social media interactions, this virtual world required real-time cooperation and genuine communication. Through her gaming avatar, Emma began forming authentic connections with other players. These relationships, though mediated by technology, contained elements of vulnerability, trust, and mutual support that mirror the most powerful face-to-face connections. What made these digital connections different from superficial social media interactions? The key lay in their interactive nature. When Emma and her teammates worked together to solve complex game challenges, they experienced what psychologists call shared intentionality, a deep form of mental and emotional synchronization that occurs when people genuinely collaborate toward common goals. Their digital interactions weren't just exchanges of information. They were shared experiences that created real emotional bonds. This discovery led researchers to a profound insight. The power of connection doesn't depend on the medium through which it occurs, but on the quality of attention and intention we bring to it. Whether face-to-face or through screens, connections become meaningful when they involve genuine engagement, mutual vulnerability, and shared purpose. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. As scientists dug deeper into these digital connection oases, they found something remarkable. The authentic connections formed in virtual spaces often sparked a desire for more in-person interaction. Emma's online gaming friends eventually organized local meetups turning virtual bonds into real-world relationships. The digital connections hadn't replaced physical ones. They had become a bridge to deeper, more diverse forms of connection. This pattern repeated across different platforms and communities. In a study of online support groups for chronic illness, researchers found that participants who formed strong digital connections were more likely to seek out and maintain supportive relationships in their physical communities. The virtual connections had served as training wheels, helping people rebuild their confidence in forming face-to-face relationships. The implications of these findings extend far beyond individual relationships. In an era where global challenges require unprecedented levels of cooperation, understanding how to foster authentic connection across digital spaces becomes crucial. Climate scientists collaborating across continents, grassroots activists coordinating global movements, and humanitarian workers sharing resources during crises all depend on our ability to create meaningful connections through technology. Yet this new frontier of connection also presents unique challenges. The same tools that can foster deep engagement can also promote superficial interaction and harmful comparison. The key lies in understanding the difference between connection technologies and connection practices. The technology itself is neutral. It's how we use it that determines whether it strengthens or weakens our invisible threads of connection. This understanding has led to innovative approaches in various fields. Schools are experimenting with digital empathy programs that teach students how to create meaningful connections, both online and offline. Companies are redesigning their remote work practices to facilitate deeper collaboration and authentic relationship building among distributed teams. Mental health professionals are developing new therapeutic approaches that blend virtual and in-person connection to support healing and growth. Perhaps most intriguingly, these insights are reshaping our understanding of community itself. Traditional definitions of community were bound by physical proximity, but we're now seeing the emergence of hybrid communities that seamlessly blend digital and physical connection. These communities often prove more resilient than purely physical or purely virtual ones, as they can adapt and maintain cohesion across different contexts and challenges. This evolution in how we connect raises profound questions about the future of human relationship. As artificial intelligence and virtual reality technologies advance, how will we maintain the authenticity that makes connections meaningful? How can we ensure that digital tools enhance rather than replace the essential human elements of connection? The answers may lie in understanding that technology is not a replacement for connection, but a potential amplifier of our natural capacity to create meaningful bonds. The power of invisible threads reveals itself most dramatically in times of crisis. In the aftermath of a devastating earthquake in Nepal, researchers witnessed something extraordinary. Communities with strong pre-existing social connections showed remarkably different patterns of recovery compared to those with weaker social bonds. But it wasn't just about having more people to help with rebuilding. Something far more fascinating was at work. In villages where people maintained strong connection practices, regular community gatherings, shared meals, collective decision-making, a phenomenon emerged that scientists now call resilience resonance. When faced with disaster, these communities didn't just support each other materially. They exhibited a kind of collective intelligence that allowed them to adapt and innovate in ways that more fragmented communities couldn't match. One village in particular became a focus of study. Despite suffering severe damage to their infrastructure, the community developed an ingenious system of resource sharing that not only helped them recover faster, but actually left them stronger than before the earthquake. They created what they called wisdom circles, regular gatherings where people could share not just their needs, but their ideas, skills, and dreams for the future. What made these wisdom circles so effective wasn't just their practical function, but their emotional impact. When people felt truly heard and valued, they became more willing to take risks, share resources, and invest in long-term solutions rather than quick fixes. The invisible threads of connection had created a foundation of trust that enabled the community to transform crisis into opportunity. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Researchers discovered that these communities weren't just rebuilding their physical infrastructure, they were actively strengthening their social fabric in ways that made them more resilient to future challenges. They had intuitively understood something that science is only now beginning to confirm. Strong social connections act as a kind of emotional immune system for communities. This concept of emotional immunity through connection has profound implications. Studies have shown that communities with strong social bonds are not only more resilient to natural disasters, but also better equipped to handle economic downturns, health crises, and social challenges. The invisible threads that connect people become a form of social infrastructure as vital as roads, buildings, or utilities. Consider what happened in a small coastal town in Japan that had maintained strong traditional connection practices. When a tsunami warning system failed during a critical moment, the community's deep-rooted social networks enabled them to evacuate effectively despite the technology breakdown. People knew their neighbors' routines, understood who might need help, and had established trust that allowed for quick, coordinated action. This example illuminates a crucial insight. While technology and formal systems are important, they're most effective when built upon a foundation of human connection. The invisible threads that bind communities together create a kind of resilience that no engineered system can replicate. But the impact of these connections goes even deeper. Neuroscience research has revealed that when communities maintain strong social bonds, individuals within them show measurable changes in brain function. People become more empathetic, better at reading social cues, and more capable of creative problem solving. It's as if the strength of our connections literally reshapes our neural circuitry, enhancing our capacity for collective adaptation and innovation. This understanding has revolutionary implications for how we approach community development and disaster preparedness. Instead of focusing solely on physical infrastructure and emergency response systems, forward-thinking communities are investing in what they call social infrastructure, the spaces, practices, and traditions that foster meaningful connection. Parks designed to encourage interaction, community centers that host regular gatherings, neighborhood initiatives that bring people together. These aren't just nice-to-have amenities. They're essential investments in community resilience. The stronger the invisible threads that connect people, the better equipped they are to face whatever challenges the future might bring. But perhaps the The most fascinating aspect of this phenomenon is how it spreads. When one community successfully strengthens its social fabric, neighboring communities often begin to adopt similar practices. It's as if the benefits of strong connection create a kind of positive contagion, inspiring others to invest in their own social infrastructure. This pattern of spread reveals something profound about human nature. We are inherently drawn to connection, and when we see its positive effects, we naturally seek to create more of it. The challenge isn't convincing people of the value of connection, it's creating the conditions that allow these natural inclinations to flourish. As we face increasingly complex global challenges, from climate change to social inequality, understanding how to strengthen these invisible threads becomes crucial. Communities that maintain strong connections aren't just happier and healthier. They're better equipped to participate in the kind of collective problem-solving our world desperately needs. But what happens when these invisible threads of connection extend beyond communities to shape how we think and create? A groundbreaking study at MIT revealed something extraordinary about the nature of innovation. The most significant breakthroughs didn't come from isolated geniuses working alone, but from what researchers called connection clusters, networks of people whose interactions created unique conditions for creative leaps. The story of a small design studio in Copenhagen illustrates this principle in action. The studio had always produced good work, but everything changed when they implemented what they called creative collisions, deliberately bringing together people from different backgrounds, disciplines, and perspectives. They removed the walls between departments, created shared spaces for spontaneous interaction, and instituted a practice they called daily wonderings, where anyone could share half-formed ideas without fear of judgment. The results were astonishing. Within 18 months, the studio had developed more innovative solutions than in their previous 5 years combined. But what fascinated researchers wasn't just the quantity of innovations, it was how they emerged. Ideas would start in one conversation, bounce between different people and perspectives, transform through unexpected connections, and eventually emerge as something entirely new and unprecedented. This phenomenon, which scientists now call collective creativity, reveals something profound about how human minds work together. When we connect authentically with others, we don't just share information. We create new possibilities for thinking and understanding. Our brains literally sync up in ways that enhance our creative capabilities beyond what any individual could achieve alone. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. The researchers discovered that the most powerful innovations emerged not from the largest networks, but from what they called deep connection zones, smaller groups where people had developed strong trust and understanding. These zones acted like creative incubators, where half-formed ideas could safely evolve and transform through the power of genuine connection. Consider what happened when a group of musicians from different cultural traditions began regularly improvising together. At first, they struggled to find common ground, their different musical languages creating confusion rather than harmony. But as they developed deeper connections, not just playing together, but sharing meals, stories, and experiences, something remarkable emerged. They began creating music that wasn't just a fusion of their traditions, but something entirely new, a sound that couldn't have existed without the invisible threads of connection between them. This pattern repeated across different fields and contexts. Scientists working on complex problems found solutions when they connected with colleagues from seemingly unrelated disciplines. Artists discovered new forms of expression through deep collaboration with people outside their medium. Business innovators developed groundbreaking products by genuinely connecting with the communities they served. The implications of these findings extend far beyond creativity and innovation. They suggest that connection isn't just a nice-to-have addition to our work. It's fundamental to how we solve problems and create value. When we strengthen the invisible threads between people, we enhance our collective capacity for understanding, imagination, and breakthrough thinking. This understanding has led to revolutionary approaches in education and professional development. Instead of focusing solely on individual skills and knowledge, forward-thinking organizations are investing in what they call connection literacy, the ability to create and nurture meaningful relationships that enhance collective creativity and problem-solving. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of this phenomenon is how it challenges our traditional notions of expertise and authority. In connection-rich environments, innovation often emerges from unexpected sources and directions. A junior employee's observation might spark a senior executive's breakthrough insight. A customer's feedback might transform an engineer's understanding of their product. The invisible threads of connection create pathways for ideas to flow in all directions, breaking down hierarchical barriers to innovation. This democratization of creativity through connection has profound implications for how we approach complex challenges. Instead of relying on top-down solutions from designated experts, we can tap into the collective intelligence that emerges when people connect authentically across different levels of experience and perspective. Moreover, these connections don't just facilitate creativity, they make it more sustainable and resilient. Ideas that emerge from genuine connection tend to be more robust, more adaptable, and more likely to create lasting positive impact. They carry within them the wisdom of multiple perspectives and the strength of shared understanding. As we face increasingly complex challenges in our world, this understanding of connection's role in creativity becomes crucial. The solutions we need won't come from isolated, brilliant minds, but from strengthening the invisible threads that allow different kinds of knowledge, perspective, and imagination to combine in new and powerful ways. The healing power of invisible threads reveals itself in the most unexpected places. In a pioneering study at a major hospital, researchers made a startling discovery. Patients who felt genuinely connected to their healthcare providers didn't just report better experiences, they actually showed measurably better medical outcomes. But the real breakthrough came when they understood why this happened. Dr. Rachel Chen, a neurobiologist turned physician, noticed something peculiar in her oncology ward. Some patients with advanced cancer were outliving their prognoses by months or even years, while others with similar conditions declined more rapidly than expected. The difference couldn't be explained by medical factors alone. As she dug deeper, a pattern emerged that would challenge conventional understanding of healing. The patients who thrived weren't necessarily those with the most advanced treatments or the strongest immune systems. Instead, they were the ones who had formed authentic connections, not just with their doctors and nurses, but with other patients, hospital staff, and visitors. These connections weren't just emotional support. They were creating measurable changes in the patient's physiology. Through careful observation and data collection, Dr. Chen documented what she called the connection cascade effect. When patients experienced genuine human connection, their stress hormones decreased, their immune function improved, and their bodies became more responsive to treatment. But here's where it gets truly fascinating. These benefits weren't limited to the patients who formed strong connections. The hospital staff who engaged in authentic connections with patients showed improved job satisfaction, decreased burnout rates, and even better cognitive performance in their medical decision-making. The invisible threads of connection were creating a healing environment that benefited everyone involved. This discovery led to a complete reimagining of how healthcare could be delivered. Consider what happened when a small community hospital in Oregon implemented what they called connection-centered care. Instead of focusing solely on medical procedures and protocols, they began intentionally creating opportunities for meaningful connection. Doctors were given more time with patients. Nurses were trained in presence-based care. Even cleaning staff and administrators were included in regular community building activities. The results were remarkable. Patient recovery times decreased by an average of 23%. Staff turnover dropped by half. Most surprisingly, the hospital's operating costs went down, not up, as fewer resources were needed to achieve better outcomes. The invisible threads of connection had created a kind of healing multiplier effect, making every medical intervention more effective. But the impact of these discoveries extends far beyond healthcare. Researchers began finding similar patterns in other healing contexts, therapy practices, addiction recovery programs, trauma treatment centers. Everywhere they looked, the strength of human connection emerged as a crucial factor in healing and recovery. This understanding has led to a radical rethinking of what constitutes treatment. Traditional medical models focus on addressing physical symptoms or chemical imbalances. But when we recognize the healing power of connection, we see that creating opportunities for authentic human bonding isn't just a nice addition to treatment. It's a fundamental part of how healing happens. The implications are particularly profound for mental health. Studies of depression and anxiety have shown that while medication and therapy are important tools, the presence of genuine human connection can be equally powerful in promoting recovery. Some researchers now suggest that our modern epidemic of mental health challenges may be partly due to the weakening of natural connection patterns in our communities. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of this phenomenon is how it spreads. When one person experiences healing through connection, they often become more capable of creating healing connections for others. It's as if the experience of being truly seen and valued awakens our natural capacity to offer the same to those around us. This healing ripple effect has been documented in various settings. Recovery groups where members form strong bonds show higher success rates, not just for current participants, but for newcomers who join later. Therapy groups where authentic connection is prioritized create lasting changes that extend beyond the immediate participants to their families and wider social networks. The science behind this phenomenon reveals something remarkable about human biology. When we experience genuine connection, our bodies release a cascade of healing compounds, oxytocin, endorphins, and other neurochemicals that promote physical and emotional well-being. But unlike pharmaceutical interventions, these natural healing agents are produced in response to authentic human interaction, making them both powerful and sustainable. This understanding is leading to innovative approaches in public health and community wellness. Instead of treating connection as a luxury or afterthought, forward-thinking organizations are beginning to see it as a crucial component of human health, as essential as proper nutrition or regular exercise. The mystery of invisible threads deepens when we look at how connection shapes human development from our earliest moments. A revolutionary study spanning 3 decades revealed something extraordinary about the way our brains develop. It turns out that our capacity for connection isn't just a social skill, it's the fundamental architecture upon which our entire consciousness is built. Dr. Maria Santos, a developmental neuroscientist, made this discovery while studying infant brain development across different cultures. She noticed that babies raised in communities with strong connection practices, frequent physical touch, constant social interaction, shared caregiving, showed remarkably different patterns of neural development compared to those in more isolated environments. But the real breakthrough came when she began tracking these children into adulthood. Those who experienced rich connection in their early years didn't just develop better social skills. They showed enhanced capabilities across all areas of cognitive and emotional development. Their brains had literally been shaped by the invisible threads of connection that surrounded them from birth. This finding challenged everything we thought we knew about human development. We've long understood that early experiences shape brain development, but this research revealed something more profound. Our brains are specifically designed to develop through connection. It's not just an influence on our development, it's the primary mechanism through which we become fully human. Consider what happened in a groundbreaking experiment at a Romanian orphanage. When researchers implemented a program they called connection immersion, where babies received consistent, loving attention from dedicated caregivers, they saw dramatic improvements, not just in emotional development, but in physical health, cognitive growth, and even genetic expression. The invisible threads of connection were literally changing these children's biological destiny. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. The researchers discovered that it wasn't just the quantity of connection that mattered, it was the quality. Brief moments of genuine, attuned interaction proved more beneficial than hours of distracted caregiving. This led to a new understanding of what they called developmental resonance, the way authentic connection creates optimal conditions for human growth. The implications of these findings extend far beyond early childhood. Throughout our lives, our brains continue to be shaped by the quality of our connections with others. Adolescents who experience strong, supportive relationships show better emotional regulation and decision-making abilities. Adults who maintain authentic connections demonstrate greater cognitive flexibility and resilience to aging. This understanding has revolutionized how we think about education, and child development, progressive schools are now implementing what they call connection-based learning, where building strong relationships is seen as fundamental to academic success. Instead of treating social-emotional development as separate from cognitive learning, they recognize that connection creates the foundation for all types of growth. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of this research is what it reveals about human potential. We've traditionally thought of intelligence and capability as largely determined by genetics and individual effort. But this new science suggests that our potential is intimately tied to the quality of our connections with others. The invisible threads that connect us don't just support our development, they help determine who we can become. Consider the case of a struggling inner-city school that implemented a connection-first approach. Instead of focusing initially on academic achievement, they invested in building strong relationships between teachers, students, and families. They created regular opportunities for meaningful interaction, established mentoring programs, and made sure every student had at least one deep connection with an adult at school. The results were transformative. Not only did academic performance improve dramatically, but behavioral problems decreased, attendance increased, and students showed remarkable growth in creativity and critical thinking. The invisible threads of connection had created an environment where natural development could flourish. This pattern repeats across different contexts and cultures. Whether in families, schools, or communities, strong connections create conditions that optimize human development. It's as if these invisible threads form a kind of developmental scaffolding, supporting and shaping our growth in ways we're only beginning to understand. The science behind this phenomenon reveals something profound about human nature. We are not, as once believed, primarily competitive beings who form connections for survival advantage. Instead, we are fundamentally collaborative creatures whose very development depends on the quality of our connections with others. This understanding challenges traditional models of human development that focus primarily on individual achievement and competition. As we face increasingly complex challenges in our world, this new understanding of human development becomes crucial. The solutions we need won't come from producing more isolated high achievers, but from nurturing environments rich in authentic connection, where all human potential can flourish. The invisible threads of connection reveal their power most surprisingly in the world of business and economics. A groundbreaking study of successful organizations uncovered an unexpected pattern. Companies that prioritized authentic connection consistently outperformed those focused solely on traditional metrics like efficiency and productivity. But the real revelation came in understanding why this happened. At first glance, the success of a small manufacturing company in Sweden seemed to defy conventional business wisdom. While their competitors invested heavily in automation and cost-cutting, this company chose a different path. They implemented what they called a connection-first approach, reorganizing their entire operation around strengthening relationships between employees, customers, and suppliers. The transformation began with small changes. They replaced rigid hierarchies with flexible teams, created spaces for spontaneous interaction, and instituted practices that encouraged genuine human connection. Every employee, from the CEO to the newest hire, spent time regularly working alongside people from different departments. They even invited customers and suppliers to participate in company meetings and decision-making processes. Critics predicted disaster. How could a company prioritizing soft factors like connection compete in a cutthroat global market? But as months turned into years, something remarkable emerged. Not only did productivity increase dramatically, but innovation flourished, quality improved, and customer loyalty reached unprecedented levels. The invisible threads of connection had created what economists now call a relationship dividend, value that couldn't be replicated by traditional business strategies. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Researchers discovered that the benefits of strong connection extended far beyond the company's bottom line. Employees reported higher job satisfaction and better work-life balance. Sick days decreased by 60%. Even more surprisingly, the positive effects rippled out into their families and communities. The company had become a catalyst for broader social well-being. This pattern began repeating in organizations across different industries and cultures. A hospital in Singapore that adopted connection-centered practices saw both patient outcomes and staff retention improve. A tech startup in California that prioritized authentic relationships developed more innovative products and attracted better talent. A retail chain that invested in building genuine connections with customers saw their market share grow even as their advertising spending decreased. The science behind this phenomenon reveals something profound about human motivation and productivity. When people feel genuinely connected to their colleagues and their work, their brains release neurochemicals that enhance cognitive function, creativity, and resilience. But unlike external motivators like bonuses or penalties, these internal rewards create sustainable, long-term engagement. Consider what happened when a major bank decided to experiment with what they called connection banking. Instead of pushing products, they trained their staff to build authentic relationships with customers. They created comfortable spaces for conversation, eliminated sales targets, and gave employees the autonomy to make decisions based on customer needs rather than quotas. The results challenged everything they thought they knew about banking. While traditional metrics suggested they should lose market share, the opposite occurred. Customers began bringing more of their business to the bank, referring friends and family, and showing remarkable loyalty during economic downturns. The invisible threads of connection had created a kind of financial ecosystem that was both more profitable and more stable. This understanding is leading to a fundamental shift in how we think about economic value. Traditional economics focuses on tangible assets and measurable transactions. But when we recognize the power of connection, we see that some of the most valuable assets in any organization are the invisible threads that bind people together in relationships of trust and mutual support. The implications extend to how we measure success in business. Forward-thinking organizations are beginning to track what they call connection metrics, indicators of relationship strength and quality, alongside traditional financial measures. Some are even experimenting with new forms of accounting that attempt to quantify the value of strong social connections. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of this phenomenon is how it challenges traditional notions of competition and cooperation. Organizations with strong internal connections often find themselves naturally collaborating with others, creating networks of mutual benefit that enhance everyone's success. It's as if the invisible threads of connection weave not just within organizations but between them, creating more resilient and sustainable economic systems. This new understanding of connection's role in business success has profound implications for how we approach economic development and organizational design. Instead of seeing connection as a luxury that successful organizations can afford, we're beginning to recognize it as a fundamental driver of success itself. The invisible threads of connection reveal their most profound impact when we look at our relationship with the natural world. A revolutionary study in environmental psychology uncovered something remarkable. People who feel genuinely connected to nature don't just appreciate it more, they make fundamentally different decisions about how to interact with the environment. But the real revelation came in understanding why this happens. Dr. James Rivera, an environmental scientist studying indigenous communities in the Amazon, noticed a striking pattern. Communities that maintained traditional practices of connection with their environment showed remarkably different patterns of resource use compared to those who had adopted more modernized, disconnected approaches. But this wasn't just about conservation. Something deeper was at work. These communities didn't see themselves as separate from nature, managing or protecting it from the outside. Instead, they experienced a profound sense of connection with the natural world, what anthropologists now call ecological resonance. This wasn't just a philosophical stance. It manifested in practical ways that modern science is only beginning to understand. Consider what happened when a small coastal community in Thailand implemented what they called connection-based conservation. Instead of just establishing protected areas or regulations, they focused on rebuilding people's direct relationship with the marine ecosystem. They created programs where children regularly spent time in the water, learning about coral reefs firsthand. Fishermen shared traditional ecological knowledge through storytelling and direct experience. The results were transformative. Not only did marine biodiversity increase, but the community's economic well-being improved as they developed more sustainable fishing practices. Most surprisingly, people began making different decisions about development and resource use without the need for external enforcement. The invisible threads of connection had created what ecologists call a sustainability feedback loop. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Researchers discovered that this connection to nature wasn't just changing people's behavior, it was altering their perception at a neurological level. Brain imaging studies showed that people with strong environmental connections processed information about natural systems differently. They were better at recognizing ecological patterns, understanding complex environmental relationships, and anticipating the consequences of human actions. This finding has profound implications for how we approach environmental challenges. Instead of relying solely on rules and regulations, some communities are experimenting with what they call connection-based stewardship. They create opportunities for people to develop direct emotional relationships with natural spaces through regular interaction, shared experiences, and cultural practices that emphasize connection. A forest restoration project in Germany provides a fascinating example. Instead of just planting trees, they created a program where local residents adopted sections of the forest, spending regular time there and learning to read the subtle signs of ecological health. As people developed deeper connections with their adopted areas, they naturally became more invested in the forest's well-being. They made different choices about consumption, supported conservation initiatives, and became advocates for sustainable policies. The science behind this phenomenon reveals something profound about human nature. Our brains are wired to form connections, not just with other people, but with the natural world around us. When these connections are strong, we automatically process environmental information differently, making decisions that account for long-term ecological impacts rather than just immediate human needs. This understanding is leading to revolutionary approaches in environmental education. Instead of just teaching facts about ecology, forward-thinking schools are creating what they call nature immersion experiences. Students spend regular time in natural settings, developing personal relationships with local ecosystems. The results show that these students don't just learn more about nature, they develop a fundamentally different relationship with the environment. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of this phenomenon is how it spreads. When people develop strong connections with nature, they often become what researchers call connection catalysts, inspiring others to develop their own environmental relationships. This creates a kind of positive feedback loop, where connection breeds more connection, gradually shifting entire communities toward more sustainable ways of living. The implications extend far beyond environmental conservation. This new understanding of ecological connection is changing how we think about urban planning, architecture, and economic development. Some cities are experimenting with biophilic design, creating spaces that foster human-nature connection, even in dense urban environments. Businesses are rethinking their relationship with natural resources, recognizing that strong ecological connections lead to more sustainable and profitable long-term decisions. This shift in perspective has profound implications for how we address global environmental challenges. Instead of seeing environmental protection as a restriction on human activity, we're beginning to understand it as a natural outcome of strengthening our connections with the natural world. The invisible threads that bind us to our environment become the foundation for more sustainable ways of living. The invisible threads of connection take on new significance as we enter the age of artificial intelligence and advanced technology. A groundbreaking study at the intersection of neuroscience and computer science revealed something unexpected. Our brains process artificial interactions fundamentally differently from genuine human connections. But the implications of this discovery went far beyond what anyone anticipated. Dr. Sarah Chen, a researcher specializing in human-computer interaction, noticed something peculiar while studying people's responses to AI companions. Even when the AI perfectly mimicked human conversation patterns, participants' brains showed distinct patterns of activity, indicating they knew, at some deep level, that something was missing. This wasn't just about detecting artificial behavior. It revealed something profound about the nature of authentic connection itself. The breakthrough came when researchers began examining what they called the connection signature, the unique pattern of neural activity that occurs during genuine human interaction. This signature couldn't be replicated by even the most sophisticated AI, suggesting that authentic connection involves elements that transcend mere information exchange or behavioral mimicry. Consider what happened when a leading tech company attempted to create what they called empathy-enhanced AI assistants. Despite programming that perfectly matched human emotional responses, users consistently reported feeling something was off in their interactions. Brain scans revealed that while these interactions activated surface-level social processing, they failed to engage deeper networks associated with authentic connection. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Instead of seeing this as a limitation, innovative developers began exploring how technology could enhance rather than replace human connection. They created what they called connection catalysts, tools designed not to simulate human interaction, but to facilitate genuine connection between people. A small startup in Seoul pioneered this approach with an app they called Bridge. Unlike traditional social media that often promotes shallow interaction, Bridge was designed to deepen existing relationships. It used AI to identify opportunities for meaningful connection and suggested activities that would strengthen real-world bonds. The results were remarkable. Users reported stronger relationships, improved emotional well-being, and a greater sense of community. The science behind this phenomenon reveals something fascinating about human nature. While we're capable of engaging with artificial entities, our brains have specialized circuits designed specifically for authentic human connection. These circuits activate differently and create more lasting neural changes than any artificial interaction can achieve. It's as if our brains have a built-in authenticity detector that responds specifically to genuine human presence. This understanding is leading to revolutionary approaches in technology design. Instead of trying to make machines more human-like, forward-thinking companies are creating what they call connection-amplifying technology, tools that enhance our natural capacity for human connection rather than trying to replace it. Consider the transformation of a traditional office space when they implemented connection-aware technology. Instead of using AI to automate communication, they developed systems that identified opportunities for meaningful human interaction. The technology would notice when team members hadn't connected face-to-face recently and create natural opportunities for collaboration. It would suggest optimal times for meetings based on people's energy levels and engagement patterns. The impact went far beyond productivity improvements. Employees reported feeling more connected to their colleagues, more satisfied with their work, and more creative in their problem solving. The technology hadn't replaced human interaction. It had created more opportunities for authentic connection to flourish. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of this development is how it's changing our understanding of technology's role in society. Instead of seeing technology as a replacement for human connection, we're beginning to view it as a tool for strengthening our natural capacity for relationship. This shift has profound implications for everything from education to healthcare to urban planning. The implications extend to how we think about artificial intelligence and machine learning. Rather than trying to create machines that can pass as human, some researchers are focusing on developing AI that can help us better understand and strengthen human connections. These connection intelligence systems analyze patterns of human interaction to identify opportunities for deeper engagement and community building. This new approach is leading to innovative solutions in various fields. Mental health professionals are using connection-amplifying technology to identify when clients might benefit from human support. Schools are implementing systems that help teachers recognize opportunities for meaningful student interaction. Even cities are experimenting with technology that facilitates community connection in public spaces. The future of technology, viewed through this lens, looks very different from earlier predictions. Instead of a world where machines replace human interaction, we're moving toward one where technology serves as a bridge to deeper human connection. The invisible threads that bind us together are being strengthened rather than replaced by our technological advances. The invisible threads of connection take on new meaning when we examine how they weave through different cultures. A fascinating study spanning 20 countries revealed something extraordinary. While the ways people connect vary dramatically across cultures, the fundamental patterns of authentic connection remain remarkably consistent. But the real revelation came in understanding how these patterns shape societal development. Dr. Maya Patel, a cultural anthropologist, made this discovery while studying what she called connection rituals in various societies. She noticed that while the external forms of these rituals differed, from elaborate tea ceremonies in Japan to casual coffee meetings in Italy, they all created similar neurological and social effects when genuine connection occurred. This suggested something profound about human nature that transcended cultural boundaries. The breakthrough came when researchers began measuring what they called cultural connection density, the number and quality of meaningful relationships in different societies. They discovered that cultures with higher connection density showed distinct patterns of social development, regardless of their economic resources or technological advancement. But it wasn't just about having more connections. It was about the quality and nature of those connections. Consider what happened in a remote village in Bhutan when researchers began studying their traditional practice of collective presence, regular gatherings where community members simply spent time together without any specific agenda. These gatherings seemed inefficient by Western standards, yet they created powerful bonds that enhanced everything from conflict resolution to economic cooperation. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. When researchers tried to implement similar practices in other cultures, they discovered that connection rituals couldn't simply be transplanted. They needed to grow organically from each culture's unique context. This led to the development of what anthropologists now call cultural connection mapping, understanding how different societies create and maintain meaningful relationships. A fascinating example emerged in a multicultural neighborhood in Toronto. Instead of trying to impose one culture's connection practices on everyone, community leaders created what they called connection bridges, spaces and activities that allowed different cultural approaches to connection to coexist and interact. The results were remarkable. Not only did cross-cultural understanding improve, but new hybrid forms of connection emerged that combined elements from various traditions. The science behind this phenomenon reveals something profound about human social development. While our basic need for connection is universal, The ways we fulfill this need are incredibly diverse and adaptable. This understanding is leading to new approaches in everything from diplomatic relations to immigrant integration programs. Consider how this insight transformed a struggling international school in Singapore. Instead of trying to create a one-size-fits-all approach to student interaction, they developed what they called cultural connection zones, spaces where different cultural approaches to friendship and community could flourish side by side. Students were encouraged to share their cultural connection practices while also exploring others. The impact went far beyond improved cross-cultural understanding. Students developed what researchers call connection fluency, the ability to understand and participate in different cultural approaches to relationship building. This skill proved invaluable as they moved into an increasingly globalized world. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of this research is what it reveals about cultural evolution. Societies with strong connection practices tend to be more resilient and adaptable, better able to maintain their cultural identity while also incorporating new influences. It's as if the invisible threads of connection provide both stability and flexibility, allowing cultures to evolve without losing their essential character. The implications extend to how we think about cultural preservation and development. Instead of seeing modernization as a threat to traditional connection practices, some communities are finding ways to adapt these practices to contemporary contexts. They're creating what anthropologists call connection hybrids, new forms of relationship building that combine ancient wisdom with modern realities. This understanding is leading to revolutionary approaches in urban planning and community development. Cities are experimenting with what they call cultural connection infrastructure, physical and social spaces designed to support diverse ways of building relationships. These range from traditional gathering places to innovative hybrid spaces that facilitate cross-cultural connection. The research also challenges our assumptions about cultural progress. Societies we might consider less developed in technological or economic terms often have sophisticated systems for creating and maintaining social connections. This suggests we need to broaden our criteria for measuring societal advancement to include what researchers call connection capital, the strength and quality of social bonds within a culture. The invisible threads of connection reveal their deepest mystery when we explore their spiritual dimensions. A groundbreaking study combining neuroscience with contemplative practices uncovered something remarkable: the experience of profound connection that mystics and spiritual teachers have described for millennia has measurable effects on the brain and body. But the implications of this discovery went far beyond religious or spiritual contexts. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a neuroscientist who had spent years studying meditation, made an unexpected discovery while researching what she called states of universal connection, moments when people experience a profound sense of oneness with everything around them. She found that these states weren't just subjective experiences. They created distinct patterns of brain activity that enhanced emotional regulation, cognitive flexibility, and even physical health. The breakthrough came when researchers began studying what they termed connection consciousness, a state of awareness characterized by a deep sense of interconnectedness. They discovered that this state wasn't limited to religious or spiritual practitioners. It could be accessed through various practices, from mindful walking to deep listening to artistic creation. What mattered wasn't the specific practice, but the quality of attention and openness it cultivated. Consider what happened when a secular workplace implemented what they called conscious connection practices. Instead of traditional mindfulness exercises, they created simple rituals that helped people experience genuine connection with themselves, others, and their work. These weren't religious practices, but they tapped into the same neural networks that activate during spiritual experiences of unity. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Researchers discovered that these states of profound connection weren't just beneficial for individuals. They created what they called resonance fields that affected everyone in proximity. When even a few people in a group maintained this quality of connected awareness, it measurably influenced the group's collective behavior and decision-making. A fascinating example emerged in a conflict resolution center in Jerusalem. Instead of focusing solely on negotiation techniques, they began incorporating what they called connection consciousness practices into their peace-building efforts. Before any formal discussions, participants engaged in activities designed to foster a sense of universal connection. The results were remarkable. Even deeply entrenched conflicts began to shift when people accessed this deeper level of connection. The science behind this phenomenon reveals something profound about human consciousness. While our everyday awareness tends to emphasize separation and individuality, our brains are actually wired for experiences of unity and connection. This understanding is leading to new approaches in fields ranging from education to environmental conservation to social justice work. Consider how this insight transformed a traditional addiction recovery program. Instead of focusing solely on individual willpower or behavioral modification, they developed what they called connection consciousness therapy. Participants were guided to experience states of profound connection that naturally reduced the appeal of addictive substances and behaviors. The approach proved more effective than conventional treatments, particularly for long-term recovery. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of this research is what it reveals about human potential. The ability to experience profound states of connection isn't limited to spiritual adepts or special individuals. It's an innate human capacity that can be developed through practice. This understanding is leading to what researchers call secular spirituality, approaches to developing connection consciousness without religious or metaphysical beliefs. The implications extend to how we think about social change and collective evolution. Instead of seeing spiritual connection as separate from practical action, some organizations are integrating what they call conscious activism, combining states of deep connection with concrete efforts for social transformation. They're finding that this approach creates more sustainable and effective change than either spiritual practice or activism alone. This new understanding is also influencing how we approach education and human development. Schools are experimenting with what they call connection consciousness curriculum, programs that help students develop their capacity for profound connection alongside traditional academic skills. The results suggest that this integration enhances both learning and personal development. The research also challenges our assumptions about the relationship between science and spirituality. The measurable effects of connection consciousness suggest that the mystical experiences reported across cultures and throughout history might be pointing to real aspects of human potential rather than mere subjective beliefs. This is leading to what researchers call contemplative science, rigorous investigation of states of consciousness traditionally associated with spiritual practice. As this understanding deepens, we're beginning to see connection consciousness not as an escape from reality, but as a more complete way of engaging with it. The invisible threads that connect us become not just metaphorical, but experiential realities, accessible through practices that develop our natural capacity for profound connection. The invisible threads of connection reveal their most dramatic power in situations of conflict and division. A revolutionary study in conflict zones around the world uncovered something extraordinary. When genuine connection occurs between opposing groups, it creates neural and social changes that persist even after people return to their respective communities. But the real revelation came in understanding how these changes spread. Dr. Omar Hassan, a peace researcher working in areas of long-standing conflict, noticed a peculiar pattern. When members of opposing groups experienced moments of authentic connection, often through shared challenges or collaborative projects, they didn't just change their individual attitudes. They became what he called bridge builders, capable of fostering understanding in their own communities in ways that professional mediators couldn't achieve. The breakthrough came when researchers began studying what they termed connection cascades in conflict situations. They discovered that when even a small number of people from opposing groups formed genuine connections, it created ripple effects that influenced entire communities. These weren't just changes in opinion. They were fundamental shifts in how people perceived and related to those they had previously seen as enemies. Consider what happened in a deeply divided city in Northern Ireland. Instead of traditional peace-building programs, community leaders implemented what they called connection incubators, spaces and activities where people from different sides of the conflict could experience genuine connection through shared interests or challenges. They weren't asked to discuss their differences or negotiate solutions. Instead, they worked together on projects that required cooperation and trust. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. The researchers discovered that the most powerful connections often formed not through direct discussion of conflicts, but through what they called parallel experiences, situations where people from opposing groups faced similar challenges together. When people struggled, celebrated, or created together, they formed bonds that transcended their ideological differences. A fascinating example emerged in a region torn by decades of ethnic conflict. A group of mothers from different ethnic backgrounds, all dealing with children's health issues, began meeting regularly to share their experiences and support each other. What started as practical cooperation evolved into deep friendship. These women became powerful agents of change in their communities, challenging long-held prejudices through their personal examples of cross-cultural connection. The science behind this phenomenon reveals something profound about human nature. When we form genuine connections with people we previously saw as other, Our brains actually reconfigure how we process information about them and their group. This isn't just a conscious change in attitude. It's a fundamental shift in how our neural networks categorize and respond to people we once considered enemies. Consider how this insight transformed a traditional peace-building program in the Middle East. Instead of focusing on political dialogue, they created what they called connection laboratories, environments where young people from different sides of the conflict could work together on challenging projects that required trust and cooperation. The projects weren't about the conflict itself, but about shared problems that affected everyone. The impact went far beyond the immediate participants. These young people returned to their communities with new neural patterns that influenced how they interpreted and shared information about the other side. They became what researchers call connection catalysts, naturally inspiring others to question their assumptions and open themselves to new possibilities for relationship. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of this research is what it reveals about the nature of conflict itself. Many conflicts persist not because of actual resource scarcity or irreconcilable differences, but because of disconnection, the inability to experience genuine human connection across group boundaries. When these invisible threads of connection are restored, seemingly intractable conflicts often begin to shift in unexpected ways. The implications extend to how we think about peace building and conflict resolution. Instead of focusing solely on negotiation techniques or political solutions, some organizations are creating what they call connection infrastructure, ongoing opportunities for genuine human connection across conflict lines. These aren't just programs or events, but sustained investments in building and maintaining relationships that can weather political tensions. This understanding is leading to revolutionary approaches in everything from international diplomacy to community mediation. Instead of treating conflicts as problems to be solved, practitioners are learning to see them as opportunities to rebuild connection. They're creating what they call connection-centered peace building, approaches that prioritize the restoration of human bonds over political agreements. The research also challenges our assumptions about what creates lasting peace. While political treaties and economic agreements are important, the invisible threads of genuine human connection often prove more powerful in preventing conflict and maintaining stability. This suggests we need to invest as much in building connection capacity as we do in traditional peace-building mechanisms. The invisible threads of connection reveal their most intriguing power in the emergence of collective intelligence. A groundbreaking study at the Center for Advanced Social Research discovered something remarkable. When groups of people achieve genuine connection, they develop capabilities that far exceed the sum of their individual abilities. But the real revelation came in understanding how this collective enhancement occurs. Dr. Lisa Wong, a cognitive scientist studying group dynamics, noticed that well-connected teams didn't just perform better. They demonstrated what she called emergent cognition, solving problems in ways that none of their individual members could have conceived alone. This wasn't just about cooperation or sharing knowledge. Something fundamentally new was emerging from their connections. The breakthrough came when researchers began studying what they termed connection resonance in group settings. Using advanced brain imaging technology, they discovered that when people experience genuine connection while working together, their neural patterns begin to synchronize in ways that enhance cognitive processing. But this wasn't just about brains working in parallel. New patterns emerged that existed only at the group level. Consider what happened when a struggling tech company implemented what they called connection-first problem-solving. Instead of jumping straight into technical discussions, teams spent time developing authentic connections through shared experiences and open dialogue. The results were extraordinary. Not only did they solve technical challenges more effectively, but they began developing innovations that none of their competitors had imagined. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Researchers discovered that this collective enhancement wasn't limited to professional settings or specific types of problems. They found similar patterns emerging in community groups, artistic collaborations, and even spontaneous gatherings where people experienced genuine connection. The key wasn't the context or the task, it was the quality of connection between participants. A fascinating example emerged in a remote village facing complex environmental challenges. Instead of bringing in outside experts, community leaders created what they called wisdom circles, regular gatherings where people could share their experiences and insights in an atmosphere of genuine connection. Over time, these circles began generating sophisticated solutions that integrated traditional knowledge with modern understanding in unprecedented ways. The science behind this phenomenon reveals something profound about human potential. While our brains are remarkable individual processors, they're actually designed to function optimally as part of a connected network. When we achieve genuine connection with others, we tap into capabilities that simply don't exist at the individual level. Consider how this insight transformed a traditional educational program. Instead of focusing on individual achievement, they developed what they called connection-based learning communities. Students worked in small, deeply connected groups that stayed together over time. These weren't just study groups, they were environments where genuine connection created enhanced learning capabilities for everyone involved. The impact went beyond academic performance. Students in these connected learning communities demonstrated improved creative thinking, better emotional regulation, and enhanced problem-solving abilities. They developed what researchers call collective competence, the ability to work effectively as part of a connected whole. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of this research is what it reveals about human evolution. Our species' success appears to be based not just on individual intelligence, but on our capacity to form genuine connections that enhance our collective capabilities. This suggests that strengthening our connections might be key to addressing the complex challenges we face as a species. The implications extend to how we think about innovation and problem solving. Instead of focusing solely on individual expertise or technological solutions, some organizations are creating what they call connection incubators, environments designed to foster the kind of genuine connection that enhances collective intelligence. This understanding is leading to revolutionary approaches in fields ranging from scientific research to artistic creation. Instead of seeing breakthroughs as the product of individual genius, we're beginning to recognize them as emergent properties of well-connected groups. This shifts focus from cultivating individual talent to creating the conditions for genuine connection that allows collective intelligence to flourish. The research also challenges our assumptions about leadership and organizational structure. The most effective leaders, it turns out, are those who can foster genuine connection within their groups. They're not just managing people or directing activities. They're creating conditions for collective intelligence to emerge through strengthened connection. The invisible threads of connection play a profound role in shaping our very sense of self. A revolutionary study in developmental psychology uncovered something extraordinary. Our identities aren't formed in isolation, but emerge through patterns of connection with others. But the real revelation came in understanding how these connection patterns continue to shape who we become throughout our lives. Dr. Michael Chen, a researcher studying identity formation, made a startling discovery while tracking long-term patterns of personal development. He found that people who maintained diverse, authentic connections didn't just have better relationships. They developed more complex and adaptable identities. This wasn't just about social influence. The connections were literally shaping the architecture of personality. The breakthrough came when researchers began studying what they called connection matrices, the unique patterns of relationship that surround each individual. They discovered that these matrices didn't just influence behavior. They created what scientists now call identity resonance, a phenomenon where our sense of self expands and evolves through genuine connection with others. Consider what happened in a groundbreaking experiment with teenagers struggling with identity issues. Instead of traditional therapy focusing on individual self-discovery, they implemented what they called connection mapping. Young people were guided to explore and strengthen their various relationship patterns, from family and friends to broader community connections. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. The researchers discovered that strengthening connections didn't just make participants feel better. It fundamentally altered how they viewed themselves and their possibilities. People who experienced genuine connection across different social contexts developed what psychologists call fluid identity, the ability to maintain a stable sense of self while adapting to different situations and relationships. A fascinating example emerged in a multicultural community center where immigrants from different backgrounds gathered. Instead of trying to preserve rigid cultural identities, they created what they called connection bridges, opportunities for people to explore and integrate different aspects of their cultural heritage through genuine relationship with others. The results were remarkable. Participants developed more nuanced and inclusive identities that honored their origins while embracing new possibilities. The science behind this phenomenon reveals something profound about human nature. Our brains are actually designed to develop and maintain identity through connection. When we experience genuine connection with others, it activates neural networks that enhance our capacity for self-understanding and growth. This suggests that isolation isn't just emotionally painful, it actually inhibits healthy identity development. Consider how this insight transformed a traditional career development program. Instead of focusing on individual skills and preferences, they implemented what they called connection-based identity exploration. Participants were encouraged to develop authentic relationships across different professional contexts, allowing their career identities to emerge through these connections, rather than through abstract self-analysis. The impact went beyond career choices. People who engaged in this connection-based approach developed what researchers call integrative identity, the ability to weave together different aspects of themselves into a coherent whole. They became more adaptable, more creative, and more resilient in facing life's challenges. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of this research is what it reveals about personal growth and transformation. Instead of seeing change as something we achieve through individual effort, we're beginning to understand it as something that emerges through patterns of connection. This has profound implications for everything from therapy to education to personal development. The implications extend to how we think about mental health and well-being. Some practitioners are now implementing what they call connection therapy, approaches that focus on strengthening and diversifying a person's connection patterns, rather than just addressing individual symptoms or behaviors. They're finding that many psychological issues naturally resolve as people develop richer, more authentic connection matrices. This understanding is leading to revolutionary approaches in education and human development. Schools are experimenting with what they call connection-based identity curriculum, programs that help students develop strong, flexible identities through authentic relationship with peers, teachers, and community members. The focus isn't just on academic achievement, but on becoming more fully oneself through connection with others. The research also challenges our cultural emphasis on individual achievement and self-reliance. While independence is important, the science suggests that healthy identity development requires a balance of autonomy and connection. We're most fully ourselves not in isolation, but in the context of genuine relationships that allow us to explore and express different aspects of who we are. The invisible threads of connection reveal their most dazzling power in the realm of creativity. A groundbreaking study in neuroscience and artistic expression uncovered something remarkable. When people create in states of genuine connection, they access levels of creativity far beyond their normal capabilities. But the real revelation came in understanding why this happens. Dr. Isabella Romano, a neuroscientist studying the creative process, made an unexpected discovery while examining the brain activity of artists working in different conditions. She found that when artists worked in states of deep connection, whether with their subjects, their audience, or fellow creators, their neural patterns shifted into what she called creative resonance, a state where different parts of the brain synchronized in unprecedented ways. The breakthrough came when researchers began studying what they termed connection-enhanced creativity in various settings. They discovered that genuine connection didn't just make people feel more inspired, it literally changed how their brains processed information and generated new ideas. This wasn't just about collaboration. It was about accessing enhanced creative capabilities through the power of authentic connection. Consider what happened when a struggling art school implemented what they called connected creation spaces. Instead of traditional studio arrangements where students worked in isolation, they created environments that fostered genuine connection between artists while they worked. The results were extraordinary. Students began producing work that transcended their previous limitations, developing styles and techniques that surprised even their instructors. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Researchers discovered that this enhancement of creativity through connection wasn't limited to artistic pursuits. They found similar patterns in scientific research, business innovation, and even technological development. The key wasn't the field of endeavor, it was the presence of genuine connection during the creative process. A fascinating example emerged in a music conservatory that experimented with what they called resonance ensembles. Instead of focusing solely on technical perfection, these groups spent time developing deep connection between members. As their connections strengthened, they began creating interpretations of classical works that critics described as transcendent, accessing levels of musical expression that couldn't be achieved through skill alone. The science behind this phenomenon reveals something profound about human creativity. While we often think of creative genius as a solitary pursuit, our brains are actually designed to be most creative when in states of genuine connection. This understanding is leading to revolutionary approaches in how we nurture and develop creative talent. Consider how this insight transformed a traditional design firm. Instead of emphasizing individual brilliance, they developed what they called connection-based innovation. Teams spent time building authentic relationships before and during their creative process. They created spaces for vulnerable sharing of half-formed ideas and collaborative exploration. The result wasn't just better designs, it was entirely new categories of solutions that emerged from their connected creativity. The impact went beyond professional settings. Community art projects that prioritized connection began producing works of surprising sophistication and power. Amateur musicians who played together in states of genuine connection created music that moved audiences more deeply than technically superior but disconnected performances. Scientists who maintained strong connections with colleagues and their research subjects made breakthroughs that eluded more isolated researchers. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of this research is what it reveals about the nature of creativity itself. Instead of seeing creativity as an individual trait or skill, we're beginning to understand it as something that emerges through connection, both the connections within our own brains and our connections with others and the world around us. The implications extend to how we think about education and talent development. Some schools are now implementing what they call connection-enhanced creativity training, programs that focus on developing students' capacity for genuine connection alongside their technical skills. They're finding that this approach not only produces better artists, musicians, and innovators, but also more fulfilled and balanced human beings. This understanding is leading to new approaches in fields ranging from scientific research to product development. Organizations are creating what they call connection incubators, environments designed to foster the kind of genuine relationship that enhances creative capacity. These aren't just collaborative spaces. They're carefully crafted environments that support the development of authentic connection alongside creative work. The research also challenges our cultural mythology about creative genius. While individual talent and effort remain important, the science suggests that our greatest creative achievements emerge not from isolated brilliance, but from states of deep connection. This has profound implications for how we support and develop creative potential at all levels of society. The invisible threads of connection reveal their most profound influence in the realm of physical health. A revolutionary study in psychoneuroimmunology uncovered something extraordinary. The quality of our social connections directly impacts our biological functioning at the cellular level. But the real revelation came in understanding how these effects spread through communities. Dr. Marcus Thompson, a researcher studying the relationship between social connection and health outcomes, made a startling discovery while examining long-term health data from various communities. He found that people with strong, authentic social connections didn't just live longer. Their health patterns actually influenced the well-being of others in their social network, creating what he called health resonance fields. The breakthrough came when researchers began studying what they termed connection medicine, the measurable health benefits that emerge from genuine social bonds. They discovered that authentic connection triggered cascades of beneficial biological changes, from improved immune function to enhanced cardiovascular health to more efficient cellular repair processes. This wasn't just about reducing stress. Connection was actively promoting physical healing. Consider what happened when a struggling community health center implemented what they called connection-based healing. Instead of focusing solely on treating individual symptoms, they created programs that fostered genuine connection among patients, healthcare providers, and community members. The results were remarkable. Recovery rates improved, chronic conditions stabilized, and even seemingly intractable health problems began to show improvement. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Researchers discovered that the health benefits of connection weren't limited to the individuals directly involved. They observed what they called health contagion, patterns where improved health outcomes spread through social networks, affecting even people who weren't directly participating in connection-building activities. A fascinating example emerged in a retirement community that implemented what they called connection circles. Instead of typical activities programming, they created opportunities for residents to form deep, meaningful relationships through shared experiences and mutual support. Over time, they noticed something remarkable. Medical expenses decreased, mobility improved, and cognitive decline slowed, not just for participants, but throughout the entire community. The science behind this phenomenon reveals something profound about human biology. Our bodies are actually designed to function optimally in conditions of social connection. When we experience genuine bonds with others, it triggers what researchers call health coherence, a state where various biological systems synchronize and operate more efficiently. Consider how this insight transformed a traditional hospital ward. Instead of treating social support as an add-on to medical care, they developed what they called connection-integrated treatment. Medical procedures were scheduled to allow time for meaningful interaction between patients and caregivers. Family members were trained in presence-based support. Even the physical space was redesigned to facilitate authentic connection. The impact went beyond improved patient outcomes. Healthcare providers reported less burnout and greater job satisfaction. Family members experienced less anxiety, and felt more empowered in supporting their loved ones. The entire healthcare environment became more conducive to healing, creating what researchers call a therapeutic field that benefited everyone involved. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of this research is what it reveals about the nature of health itself. Instead of seeing health as primarily an individual characteristic, we're beginning to understand it as something that emerges through patterns of connection. This has profound implications for how we approach both prevention and treatment of disease. The implications extend to how we think about public health and community wellness. Some organizations are now implementing what they call connection-based health initiatives, programs that focus on strengthening social bonds as a fundamental aspect of promoting physical well-being. They're finding that this approach is often more effective and sustainable than traditional health interventions. This understanding is leading to revolutionary approaches in healthcare delivery. Instead of focusing solely on individual treatment, forward-thinking institutions are creating what they call connection ecosystems, environments and practices that support the development of healing relationships throughout the healthcare process. These aren't just support services, they're fundamental aspects of medical care. The research also challenges our cultural emphasis on individual health responsibility. While personal habits and choices remain important, the science suggests that our health is inextricably linked to the quality of our social connections. This has profound implications for how we think about everything from healthcare policy to workplace wellness programs. The invisible threads of connection reveal their subtlest power in the realm of emotional intelligence. A groundbreaking study in effective neuroscience uncovered something remarkable. When people experience genuine connection, their capacity for emotional understanding and regulation expands dramatically. But the real revelation came in understanding how this enhanced emotional capability spreads through social networks. Dr. Sofia Martinez, a researcher studying emotional development, made an unexpected discovery while examining patterns of emotional processing in connected groups. She found that people who maintained authentic connections didn't just become more emotionally aware, they developed what she called emotional resonance, the ability to understand and respond to others' feelings with extraordinary accuracy and depth. The breakthrough came when researchers began studying what they termed connection-enhanced emotional intelligence. They discovered that genuine connection didn't just make people feel more empathetic, it actually rewired their neural circuits in ways that enhanced their capacity for emotional understanding and regulation. This wasn't just about becoming more sensitive, it was about developing fundamentally new emotional capabilities. Consider what happened when a struggling corporate team implemented what they called emotional connection practice. Instead of traditional emotional intelligence training, they created regular opportunities for team members to share authentic experiences and feelings in a supported environment. The results were transformative. Not only did individual emotional intelligence improve, but the entire team developed a kind of collective emotional wisdom that enhanced their ability to navigate complex challenges. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Researchers discovered that this enhancement of emotional intelligence through connection wasn't limited to formal settings or intentional practices. They observed what they called emotional contagion networks, patterns where improved emotional capabilities naturally spread through groups of genuinely connected people. A fascinating example emerged in a high school that introduced connection circles as part of their daily routine. Instead of trying to teach emotional skills directly, they created safe spaces for students to form authentic connections and share their experiences. Over time, they noticed something remarkable. Bullying decreased, empathy increased, and students became more skilled at handling emotional challenges, even without explicit instruction. The science behind this phenomenon reveals something profound about human emotional development. While we often think of emotional intelligence as an individual trait, our brains are actually designed to develop emotional capabilities through connection with others. This understanding is leading to revolutionary approaches in emotional education and development. Consider how this insight transformed a traditional therapy practice. Instead of focusing solely on individual emotional processing, they developed what they called connection-based emotional healing. Clients were encouraged to build authentic relationships within carefully structured support groups. The impact went beyond individual healing. Participants developed enhanced emotional capabilities that they carried into all their relationships. The effects rippled outward in surprising ways. People who experienced this connection-based approach to emotional development became what researchers call emotional catalysts in their communities. Their enhanced capacity for emotional understanding and regulation naturally influenced those around them, creating ripple effects of improved emotional intelligence. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of this research is what it reveals about the nature of emotional intelligence itself. Instead of seeing it as a fixed trait or learned skill, we're beginning to understand it as something that emerges and evolves through patterns of connection. This has profound implications for how we approach emotional development at all levels of society. The implications extend to how we think about leadership and organizational development. Some companies are now implementing what they call connection-centered leadership training, programs that focus on developing leaders' capacity for authentic connection as the foundation for emotional intelligence. They're finding that this approach creates more effective and empathetic leaders than traditional management training. This understanding is leading to new approaches in fields ranging from education to conflict resolution. Organizations are creating what they call emotional connection incubators, environments designed to foster the kind of genuine relationships that enhance emotional capabilities. These aren't just safe spaces for emotional expression. They're carefully crafted environments that support the development of advanced emotional intelligence through connection. The research also challenges our cultural emphasis on emotional self-reliance. While personal emotional regulation remains important, the science suggests that our greatest emotional capabilities emerge through connection with others. This has profound implications for how we think about everything from mental health to social development. The invisible threads of connection manifest in surprising ways through physical space. A revolutionary study in environmental psychology uncovered something extraordinary. The design of our physical environments dramatically affects our capacity for genuine connection. But the real revelation came in understanding how spaces themselves can become catalysts for meaningful human bonds. Dr. Alexander Kim, an architect turned social scientist, made a remarkable discovery while studying how people interact in different environments. He found that certain spatial configurations didn't just facilitate interaction, they created what he called connection fields, areas where meaningful relationships naturally emerged and flourished. This wasn't just about open floor plans or comfortable seating. Something deeper was at work. The breakthrough came when researchers began studying what they termed connection-conscious architecture. They discovered that spaces designed with genuine human connection in mind had measurable effects on everything from stress levels to cognitive function to social bonding. The physical environment wasn't just a backdrop for a connection. It was actively shaping people's capacity to form meaningful relationships. Consider what happened when a struggling community center implemented what they called connection-enhanced design. Instead of traditional renovation focused on aesthetics and functionality, they redesigned their space specifically to foster authentic human interaction. They created what researchers called connection nodes, carefully crafted areas that naturally drew people together in ways that encouraged meaningful engagement. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Researchers discovered that spaces designed for connection didn't just affect the people using them. They influenced the entire surrounding community. They observed what they called spatial resonance, patterns where well-designed connection spaces created ripple effects that enhanced social bonds throughout the neighborhood. A fascinating example emerged in an urban park that implemented connection landscaping. Instead of focusing solely on aesthetics or recreation, they designed the space to create natural opportunities for meaningful interaction. They incorporated what they called gathering gradients, areas that provided varying levels of social engagement, from intimate conversation spaces to larger community gathering areas. The science behind this phenomenon reveals something profound about human nature. Our brains process social information differently depending on the physical environment, and certain spatial configurations actually enhance our capacity for genuine connection. This understanding is leading to revolutionary approaches in urban planning and architectural design. Consider how this insight transformed a traditional office building. Instead of the typical focus on efficiency and density, they developed what they called connection-centered workspaces. The design incorporated features that naturally encouraged meaningful interaction while still maintaining productivity. The impact went beyond improved collaboration. Employees reported feeling more connected to their work and each other. The effects extended far beyond the workplace. People who spent time in these connection-enhanced environments began bringing elements of what they learned into their home designs and community spaces. They became what researchers call spatial catalysts, naturally creating opportunities for connection in various contexts of their lives. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of this research is what it reveals about the relationship between physical and social architecture. Instead of seeing spaces as neutral containers for human activity, we're beginning to understand them as active participants in shaping social connection. This has profound implications for how we design everything from homes to cities. The implications extend to how we think about urban development and community planning. Some cities are now implementing what they call connection infrastructure, networks of spaces specifically designed to foster meaningful social bonds. They're finding that this approach creates more resilient and vibrant communities than traditional urban development strategies. This understanding is leading to new approaches in fields ranging from healthcare facility design to educational architecture. Organizations are creating what they call connection-conscious environments, spaces that actively support the development of authentic relationships. These aren't just aesthetically pleasing or functional spaces. They're carefully crafted environments that enhance human connection at multiple levels. The research also challenges our traditional approaches to public space design. While efficiency and functionality remain important, the science suggests that our physical environments play a crucial role in supporting or hindering meaningful connection. This has profound implications for how we think about everything from park design to transportation infrastructure. The invisible threads of connection reveal their timeless power in the transmission of wisdom between generations. A groundbreaking study in cultural anthropology uncovered something remarkable. When genuine connection exists between generations, knowledge transfers in ways that transcend traditional learning. But the real revelation came in understanding how this wisdom transmission shapes society's evolution. Dr. Rachel Martinez, studying intergenerational relationships across various cultures, made an unexpected discovery. She found that communities with strong connections between age groups didn't just preserve knowledge better. They developed what she called wisdom resonance, where insights from different generations combined to create new understanding that neither group could have achieved alone. The breakthrough came when researchers began studying what they termed connection-based wisdom transmission. They discovered that when genuine bonds existed between generations, the sharing of knowledge went far beyond simple information transfer. Young people gained not just facts, but deep intuitive understanding, while elders gained fresh perspectives that helped them adapt ancient wisdom to modern challenges. Consider what happened when a struggling neighborhood implemented what they called wisdom bridges. Instead of traditional mentoring programs, they created opportunities for authentic connection between different age groups through shared projects and experiences. The results were extraordinary. Knowledge flowed naturally in both directions, creating what researchers called dynamic wisdom, insights that evolved and adapted while maintaining their essential truth. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Researchers discovered that this enhancement of wisdom through intergenerational connection wasn't limited to traditional knowledge domains. They observed what they called wisdom field effects, patterns where improved understanding spread throughout community networks, affecting even those not directly involved in the connection processes. A fascinating example emerged in a community garden project that paired elderly master gardeners with young environmental activists. Instead of just teaching gardening techniques, they created space for genuine connection through shared work and storytelling. Over time, something remarkable happened. Traditional growing wisdom merged with modern ecological understanding, creating innovative, sustainable practices that neither group could have developed alone. The science behind this phenomenon reveals something profound about human learning. While we often think of knowledge transmission as a one-way process from elder to younger, our brains are actually designed to create new understanding through intergenerational connection. This insight is leading to revolutionary approaches in education and community development. Consider how this transformed a traditional skills training program. Instead of separating learners by age or experience level, they developed what they called connection-based learning circles. These groups deliberately mixed different generations, creating environments where wisdom could flow naturally through authentic relationships. The impact went beyond skill acquisition. Participants developed deeper understanding of both traditional practices and innovative possibilities. The effects rippled outward in surprising ways. People who experienced this connection-based approach to learning became what researchers call wisdom catalysts in their communities. Their enhanced capacity for integrating different types of knowledge naturally influenced those around them, creating networks of deeper understanding that crossed generational boundaries. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of this research is what it reveals about the nature of wisdom itself. Instead of seeing it as something that simply accumulates with age, we're beginning to understand wisdom as something that emerges through genuine connection between generations. This has profound implications for how we approach knowledge preservation and innovation in society. The implications extend to how we think about social progress and development. Some communities are now implementing what they call wisdom weaving initiatives, programs that focus on strengthening intergenerational bonds as a way to navigate complex social challenges. They're finding that this approach creates more sustainable and effective solutions than traditional top-down or bottom-up approaches. This understanding is leading to new approaches in fields ranging from technological innovation to environmental conservation. Organizations are creating what they call wisdom incubators, environments designed to foster the kind of genuine intergenerational relationships that enhance collective understanding. These aren't just knowledge-sharing spaces. They're carefully crafted environments that support the emergence of new wisdom through connection. The research also challenges our cultural tendency to segregate age groups. While age-specific spaces and programs have their place, the science suggests that our greatest wisdom emerges through meaningful connection across generations. This has profound implications for how we think about everything from education to urban planning to social policy. The invisible threads of connection reveal their most powerful aspect in times of adversity. A pioneering study in psychological resilience uncovered something extraordinary. People with strong, authentic connections don't just cope better with challenges, they actually transform difficulties into opportunities for growth. But the real revelation came in understanding how this resilience spreads through connected communities. Dr. David Chen, researching trauma recovery across different populations, made a startling discovery. He found that communities with strong connection networks didn't just recover faster from adversity. They developed what he called resilience resonance, where the capacity to bounce back from challenges amplified throughout the entire social network. This wasn't just about mutual support. Something more profound was happening. The breakthrough came when researchers began studying what they termed connection-enhanced resilience. They discovered that when people maintained genuine connections during difficult times, they didn't just survive challenges, they underwent what psychologists now call transformative adaptation, emerging stronger and more capable than before. This wasn't just individual growth, it was a collective enhancement of adaptive capacity. Consider what happened when a community devastated by natural disaster implemented what they called connection-first recovery. Instead of focusing solely on rebuilding physical infrastructure, they prioritized maintaining and strengthening social bonds throughout the recovery process. The results were remarkable. Not only did they rebuild more effectively, but the community emerged with greater collective strength and adaptability than they had before the disaster. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Researchers discovered that this enhanced resilience through connection wasn't limited to the immediate community. They observed what they called resilience field effects, patterns where increased adaptive capacity spread through interconnected networks, strengthening even communities that hadn't directly experienced the challenge. A fascinating example emerged in a neighborhood facing economic hardship. Instead of traditional assistance programs, they created resilience circles, groups where people could form genuine connections while sharing resources and support. Over time, something remarkable happened. Participants didn't just survive their difficulties. They began innovating new solutions that transformed their challenges into opportunities for community development. The science behind this phenomenon reveals something profound about human adaptation. While we often think of resilience as an individual trait, our brains are actually designed to develop adaptive capacity through connection with others. This understanding is leading to revolutionary approaches in trauma recovery and community development. Consider how this insight transformed a traditional crisis intervention program. Instead of focusing solely on individual coping strategies, they developed what they called connection-based resilience building. People facing similar challenges were brought together in ways that fostered genuine bonds and mutual support. The impact went beyond immediate crisis management. Participants developed lasting resilience that they carried into all areas of their lives. The effects rippled outward in remarkable ways. People who experienced this connection-based approach to resilience became what researchers call adaptation catalysts in their communities. Their enhanced capacity for transforming challenges into growth naturally influenced those around them, creating networks of increased resilience that crossed social boundaries. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of this research is what it reveals about the nature of adversity itself. Instead of seeing challenges as purely negative experiences to be overcome, we're beginning to understand them as potential catalysts for collective growth when faced through strong connection networks. This has profound implications for how we approach everything from disaster response to social change. The implications extend to how we think about social support and intervention. Some organizations are now implementing what they call connection-centered crisis response, approaches that focus on strengthening social bonds as a fundamental aspect of addressing challenges. They're finding that this approach creates more sustainable and transformative outcomes than traditional intervention methods. This understanding is leading to new approaches in fields ranging from healthcare to social justice work. Organizations are creating what they call resilience incubators, environments designed to foster the kind of genuine connections that enhance collective adaptive capacity. These aren't just support groups, they're carefully crafted spaces that facilitate transformation through connection. The research also challenges our cultural emphasis on individual strength and self-reliance. While personal resources are important, the science suggests that our greatest resilience emerges through genuine connection with others. This has profound implications for how we think about everything from mental health to social policy. The invisible threads of connection reveal their mysterious power in the realm of collective memory. A groundbreaking study in cognitive neuroscience uncovered something remarkable. When people share genuine connections, they don't just remember events better. They create what researchers call shared memory fields that enhance collective understanding in unprecedented ways. But the real revelation came in understanding how these memory fields shape cultural evolution. Dr. Maria Santos, studying memory formation in connected groups, made an unexpected discovery. She found that communities with strong social bonds didn't just preserve memories more accurately. They developed what she called memory resonance, where shared experiences were encoded and recalled with extraordinary richness and depth. This wasn't just about remembering facts. It was about creating living, evolving understanding through connection. The breakthrough came when researchers began studying what they termed connection-enhanced memory. They discovered that when people maintained authentic connections while sharing experiences, their brains synchronized in ways that created more complex and nuanced memories than any individual could form alone. This collective memory wasn't just an aggregation of individual memories. It was something entirely new. Consider what happened when a community recovering from historical trauma implemented what they called memory circles. Instead of traditional historical documentation, they created spaces for genuine connection where people could share and process collective memories together. The results were transformative. Not only did they preserve their history more effectively, but they began healing intergenerational wounds through shared understanding. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Researchers discovered that this enhancement of memory through connection wasn't limited to the people directly involved in sharing experiences. They observed what they called memory field effects, patterns where improved understanding spread through social networks, affecting even those who weren't present for the original events. A fascinating example emerged in a multicultural neighborhood that created story bridges, regular gatherings where people from different backgrounds could share their histories through genuine connection. Over time, something remarkable happened. Participants didn't just learn about each other's past. They developed a rich, shared understanding that transformed how they saw their present and future together. The science behind this phenomenon reveals something profound about human memory. While we often think of memory as individual storage of information, our brains are actually designed to create and maintain memories through connection with others. This understanding is leading to revolutionary approaches in education and cultural preservation. Consider how this insight transformed a traditional oral history project. Instead of just recording individual testimonies, they developed what they called connection-based memory weaving. People from different generations and perspectives were brought together to share experiences in ways that fostered genuine bonds. The impact went beyond preservation. They created living histories that continued to evolve and inform community development. The effects rippled outward in surprising ways. People who experienced this connection-based approach to memory became what researchers call memory catalysts in their communities. Their enhanced capacity for understanding and sharing collective experience naturally influenced those around them, creating networks of deeper historical awareness. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of this research is what it reveals about the nature of memory itself. Instead of seeing it as a static record of the past, we're beginning to understand memory as something that lives and evolves through patterns of connection. This has profound implications for how we approach everything from historical preservation to cultural identity. The implications extend to how we think about education and cultural transmission. Some organizations are now implementing what they call connection-centered learning, approaches that focus on building authentic relationships as the foundation for sharing knowledge and understanding. They're finding that this creates more lasting and meaningful learning than the traditional educational methods. This understanding is leading to new approaches in fields ranging from conflict resolution to community healing. Organizations are creating what they called memory incubators, environments designed to foster the kind of genuine connections that enhance collective understanding. These aren't just spaces for sharing stories. They're carefully crafted environments that support the evolution of shared meaning through connection. The research also challenges our conventional approaches to historical documentation and cultural preservation. While recording facts and artifacts remains important, the science suggests that our deepest understanding of the past emerges through genuine connection in the present. This has profound implications for how we think about everything from museums to memorial sites to cultural celebrations. The invisible threads of connection reveal their most enigmatic power in how they shape our experience of time. A revolutionary study in cognitive science uncovered something extraordinary. When people experience genuine connection, their perception of time fundamentally changes. But the real revelation came in understanding how these altered time experiences ripple through social networks. Dr. Thomas Wright, researching temporal perception in social contexts, made a startling discovery. He found that people engaged in authentic connection didn't just enjoy their time more, they experienced what he called time resonance, where shared moments took on a quality of depth and significance that transcended normal temporal boundaries. This wasn't just about time flying when having fun. Something more profound was occurring. The breakthrough came when researchers began studying what they termed connection-enhanced time perception. They discovered that when people maintained genuine connections during activities, their brains processed temporal information differently, creating what neuroscientists now call extended present moments, experiences of time that felt both immediate and eternal simultaneously. Consider what happened when a busy corporate office implemented what they called connection time zones. Instead of traditional time management strategies, they created periods specifically dedicated to fostering genuine connection among team members. The results were remarkable. Not only did productivity improve, but people reported experiencing time in a fundamentally different way, both more efficient and more meaningful. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Researchers discovered that this enhancement of temporal experience through connection wasn't limited to scheduled interactions. They observed what they called temporal field effects, patterns where altered time perception spread through connected groups, creating shared experiences of time that defied conventional measurement. A fascinating example emerged in a community arts project that created time circles, regular gatherings where people could engage in creative activities while maintaining genuine connection. Participants reported entering what they described as timeless spaces, where hours passed like minutes, yet each moment felt rich with meaning and possibility. These weren't just subjective experiences. Researchers documented measurable changes in physiological markers of time perception. The science behind this phenomenon reveals something profound about human consciousness. While we often think of time as an objective measure, our brains actually process temporal information differently when we're in states of genuine connection. This understanding is leading to revolutionary approaches in everything from education to workplace design. Consider how this insight transformed a traditional meditation center. Instead of focusing solely on individual practice, they developed what they called connection-based mindfulness. Participants practiced together in ways that fostered genuine bonds, creating what researchers termed collective present moments. The impact went beyond individual stress reduction. Entire groups began experiencing time in more expansive and meaningful ways. The effects rippled outward in surprising ways. People who experienced this connection-based approach to time became what researchers call temporal catalysts in their communities. Their enhanced capacity for meaningful temporal experience naturally influenced those around them, creating networks of more conscious and connected time perception. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of this research is what it reveals about the nature of time itself. Instead of seeing time as a linear progression of moments, we're beginning to understand it as something that flexes and flows through patterns of connection. This has profound implications for how we think about everything from scheduling to life planning to social organization. The implications extend to how we think about productivity and efficiency. Some organizations are now implementing what they call connection-conscious scheduling, approaches that recognize the paradoxical way that time spent building genuine connections often leads to better outcomes than time spent in purely task-focused work. This understanding is leading to new approaches in fields ranging from therapy to community development. Organizations are creating what they call temporal incubators, environments designed to foster the kind of genuine connections that enhance collective time experience. These aren't just relaxation spaces, they're carefully crafted environments that support the emergence of more meaningful temporal experiences through connection. The research also challenges our cultural obsession with time management and efficiency. While organization and planning remain important, the science suggests that our most productive and meaningful experiences of time emerge through genuine connection with others. This has profound implications for how we think about everything from work schedules to leisure time to life balance. The invisible threads of connection reveal their most subtle influence in how they shape our sensory experiences. A groundbreaking study in perceptual psychology uncovered something remarkable. When people share genuine connections, their sensory awareness expands and deepens in unexpected ways. But the real revelation came in understanding how these enhanced perceptions spread through connected groups. Dr. Emily Chen, studying sensory processing in social contexts, made an unexpected discovery. She found that people engaged in authentic connection didn't just become more aware of their surroundings. They developed what she called sensory resonance, where shared experiences created richer and more nuanced perceptions than any individual could achieve alone. This wasn't just about heightened awareness. It was about accessing entirely new dimensions of sensory experience. The breakthrough came when researchers began studying what they termed connection-enhanced perception. They discovered that when people maintained genuine connections while exploring their environment, their brains processed sensory information differently, creating what neuroscientists now call collective sensory fields, shared spaces of enhanced awareness that transcended individual perception. Consider what happened when an art museum implemented what they called connection viewing. Instead of traditional silent observation, they created opportunities for genuine connection between viewers as they experienced the artwork together. The results were extraordinary. People reported seeing details, colors, and patterns they had never noticed before, and their emotional responses to the art became dramatically deeper. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Researchers discovered that this enhancement of sensory experience through connection wasn't limited to formal settings. They observed what they called perceptual field effects, patterns where increased sensory awareness spread through social networks, affecting even casual interactions and everyday experiences. A fascinating example emerged in a community garden project that created sensory circles, groups where people could explore nature together while maintaining genuine connection. Participants began noticing subtle changes in plant growth, weather patterns, and ecological relationships that they had previously overlooked. These weren't just individual observations. They were creating a shared field of enhanced environmental awareness. The science behind this phenomenon reveals something profound about human perception. While we often think of sensory experience as purely individual, our brains are actually designed to process sensory information more richly when in states of genuine connection. This understanding is leading to revolutionary approaches in fields ranging from education to environmental conservation. Consider how this insight transformed a traditional wine tasting experience. Instead of focusing on individual taste descriptions, they developed what they called connection-based tasting. Participants explored flavors and aromas while maintaining authentic connections with others. The impact went beyond improved taste discrimination. People began experiencing entirely new dimensions of sensory appreciation. The effects rippled outward in remarkable ways. People who experienced this connection-based approach to sensory awareness became what researchers call perception catalysts in their communities. Their enhanced capacity for sensory experience naturally influenced those around them, creating networks of more conscious and nuanced environmental awareness. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of this research is what it reveals about the nature of perception itself. Instead of seeing sensory experience as a simple input-output process, we're beginning to understand it as something that emerges and evolves through patterns of connection. This has profound implications for how we think about everything from art appreciation to environmental awareness to product design. The implications extend to how we think about experience design and environmental planning. Some organizations are now implementing what they call connection-conscious environments, spaces specifically designed to support enhanced sensory awareness through genuine human connection. They're finding that this approach creates more engaging and meaningful experiences than traditional design approaches. This understanding is leading to new approaches in fields ranging from food science to urban planning. Organizations are creating what they call sensory incubators, environments designed to foster the kind of genuine connections that enhance collective perception. These aren't just experiential spaces. They're carefully crafted environments that support the emergence of richer sensory awareness through connection. The research also challenges our conventional understanding of sensory development and education. While individual sensory training remains valuable, the science suggests that our richest and most nuanced perceptions emerge through genuine connection with others. This has profound implications for how we think about everything, from early childhood development to professional training in sensory-dependent fields. The invisible threads of connection reveal their most intricate power in how they shape human language and communication. A pioneering study in psycholinguistics uncovered something extraordinary. When people shared genuine connections, their capacity for communication transcends ordinary linguistic boundaries. But the real revelation came in understanding how these enhanced communication patterns spread through social networks. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, researching language patterns in connected groups, made a startling discovery. She found that people who maintained authentic connections didn't just communicate more effectively. They developed what she called language resonance, where meaning flowed between them in ways that transcended conventional verbal expression. This wasn't just about better communication. It was about accessing entirely new dimensions of human understanding. The breakthrough came when researchers began studying what they termed connection-enhanced communication. They discovered that when people maintained genuine connections while interacting, their brains processed language differently, creating what linguists now call shared semantic fields, spaces of meaning that went beyond individual vocabulary and grammar to create deeper understanding. Consider what happened when a multicultural community center implemented what they called connection dialogue. Instead of traditional language exchange programs, they created opportunities for genuine connection between speakers of different languages. The results were remarkable. Participants began understanding each other in ways that surpassed their formal language abilities, developing what researchers termed connection-based fluency. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Researchers discovered that this enhancement of communication through connection wasn't limited to formal settings. They observed what they called linguistic field effects, patterns where improved communication capacity spread through social networks, affecting even casual conversations and everyday interactions. A fascinating example emerged in a cross-cultural business team that created connection circles, regular gatherings where team members could build authentic relationships beyond professional roles. Over time, they developed what participants described as an intuitive language, not a formal system, but a deep mutual understanding that transformed their collaboration. Ideas and innovations emerged that no individual could have conceived or expressed alone. The science behind this phenomenon reveals something profound about human communication. While we often think of language as a system of symbols and rules, our brains are actually designed to create meaning through connection in ways that transcend conventional linguistic structures. This understanding is leading to revolutionary approaches in fields ranging from education to international relations. Consider how this insight transformed a traditional language learning program. Instead of focusing solely on grammar and vocabulary, they developed what they called connection-based language acquisition. Students were immersed in environments that fostered genuine connections with native speakers. The impact went beyond improved language skills. Participants developed an intuitive grasp of cultural nuances and meaning that traditional methods couldn't achieve. The effects rippled outward in surprising ways. People who experienced this connection-based approach to communication became what researchers call language catalysts in their communities. Their enhanced capacity for understanding and expression naturally influenced those around them, creating networks of more nuanced and effective communication. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of this research is what it reveals about the nature of language itself. Instead of seeing language as a fixed system of communication, we're beginning to understand it as something that evolves and adapts through patterns of connection. This has profound implications for how we think about everything from education to artificial intelligence to cultural preservation. The implications extend to how we think about organizational communication and team dynamics. Some companies are now implementing what they call connection-conscious communication, approaches that prioritize building authentic relationships as the foundation for effective information exchange. They're finding that this creates more innovative and adaptable organizations than traditional communication strategies. This understanding is leading to new approaches in fields ranging from diplomacy to conflict resolution. Organizations are creating what they call communication incubators, environments designed to foster the kind of genuine connections that enhance collective understanding. These aren't just meeting spaces, they're carefully crafted environments that support the emergence of deeper meaning through connection. The research also challenges our conventional approaches to language education and communication training. While technical skills remain important, the science suggests that our greatest capacity for understanding emerges through genuine connection with others. This has profound implications for how we think about everything from childhood language development to professional communication training. The invisible threads of connection reveal their transformative power in the realm of leadership. A groundbreaking study in organizational psychology uncovered something remarkable. When leaders prioritize authentic connection, Their influence extends far beyond traditional authority structures. But the real revelation came in understanding how this new model of leadership spreads through organizations and communities. Dr. James Anderson, studying leadership dynamics across various organizations, made an unexpected discovery. He found that leaders who cultivated genuine connections didn't just have more engaged teams. They developed what he called leadership resonance, where their influence naturally amplified through networks of authentic relationships. This wasn't just about being a better boss. It was about catalyzing collective potential in unprecedented ways. The breakthrough came when researchers began studying what they termed connection-centered leadership. They discovered that when leaders maintained genuine connections with their teams, organizational dynamics shifted dramatically, creating what management scientists now call resonant organizations, environments where innovation and adaptation emerged naturally through strengthened relationships. Consider what happened when a struggling corporation implemented what they called connection leadership. Instead of traditional top-down management, they trained leaders to focus on building authentic relationships throughout the organization. The results were extraordinary. Not only did performance improve, but the entire culture transformed, with leadership capacity emerging at all levels of the organization. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Researchers discovered that this enhancement of leadership through connection wasn't limited to formal positions of authority. They observed what they called leadership field effects, patterns where improved leadership capacity spread through connected networks, empowering people at all levels to step into leadership roles naturally. A fascinating example emerged in a community development project that created leadership circles, groups where people could develop authentic connections while working on shared challenges. Over time, traditional hierarchies began to dissolve, replaced by what researchers called dynamic leadership networks, fluid structures where leadership emerged organically based on the needs of the moment and the strengths of connected individuals. The science behind this phenomenon reveals something profound about human organization. While we often think of leadership as a position or a set of skills, our brains are actually designed to coordinate and influence through connection in ways that transcend formal authority. This understanding is leading to revolutionary approaches in fields ranging from business management to social movements. Consider how this insight transformed a traditional leadership development program. Instead of focusing on individual skills and authority, they developed what they called connection-based leadership cultivation. Participants learned to build and maintain authentic relationships as the foundation of their leadership practice. The impact went beyond improved management skills. They became catalysts for organizational transformation. The effects rippled outward in remarkable ways. People who experienced this connection-based approach to leadership became what researchers call transformation catalysts in their communities. Their enhanced capacity for inspiring and coordinating through connection naturally influenced those around them, creating networks of more effective and humane leadership practices. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of this research is what it reveals about the nature of power and influence itself. Instead of seeing leadership as control or direction, We're beginning to understand it as something that emerges through patterns of authentic connection. This has profound implications for how we think about everything from organizational structure to social change. The implications extend to how we think about governance and decision-making. Some organizations are now implementing what they call connection governance, approaches that recognize leadership as a collective capacity emerging through strengthened relationships rather than a top-down function. They're finding that this creates more resilient and innovative organizations than traditional hierarchical structures. This understanding is leading to new approaches in fields ranging from education to community organizing. Organizations are creating what they call leadership incubators, environments designed to foster the kind of genuine connections that enhance collective leadership capacity. These aren't just training programs. They're carefully crafted environments that support the emergence of distributed leadership through connection. The research also challenges our conventional notions of authority and control. While structure and accountability remain important, the science suggests that our greatest capacity for coordinated action emerges through networks of genuine connection. This has profound implications for how we think about everything from corporate management to social movements to global governance. The invisible threads of connection reveal their decisive power in how we make choices. A revolutionary study in decision science uncovered something extraordinary. When people maintain genuine connections during decision-making processes, the quality and wisdom of their choices fundamentally change. But the real revelation came in understanding how these enhanced decision-making capabilities spread through connected groups. Dr. Lisa Wong, researching group decision dynamics, made a startling discovery. She found that groups with strong, authentic connections didn't just make better decisions. They developed what she called decision resonance, where their collective choices emerged from a deeper understanding that transcended individual reasoning. This wasn't just about better collaboration. It was about accessing entirely new levels of decision-making wisdom. The breakthrough came when researchers began studying what they termed connection-enhanced decision-making. They discovered that when people maintained genuine connections while working through choices, their brains processed information differently, creating what decision scientists now call collective wisdom fields, shared spaces of understanding that led to more nuanced and effective decisions. Consider what happened when a city council implemented what they called connection deliberation. Instead of traditional debate and voting, they created opportunities for genuine connection between stakeholders as they worked through complex issues. The results were remarkable. Not only did they make better decisions, but the implementation of those decisions became smoother as people felt truly heard and understood in the process. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Researchers discovered that this enhancement of decision-making through connection wasn't limited to formal settings. They observed what they called wisdom field effects, patterns where improved decision-making capacity spread through social networks, affecting even casual choices and everyday judgments. A fascinating example emerged in a healthcare network that created decision circles, regular gatherings where medical professionals could build authentic connections while discussing complex cases. Over time, they developed what participants described as collective intuition, not groupthink, but a deeper shared understanding that led to more effective treatment decisions. The impact on patient outcomes was significant and measurable. The science behind this phenomenon reveals something profound about human cognition. While we often think of decision-making as a rational, individual process, our brains are actually designed to make choices more effectively through connection with others. This understanding is leading to revolutionary approaches in fields ranging from business strategy to public policy. Consider how this insight transformed a traditional investment firm. Instead of relying solely on data and individual analysis, they developed what they called connection-based decision protocols. Teams built genuine relationships before making major investment decisions. The impact went beyond improved returns. They began identifying opportunities and risks that conventional analysis missed entirely. The effects rippled outward in surprising ways. People who experienced this connection-based approach to decision-making became what researchers call wisdom catalysts in their organizations. Their enhanced capacity for nuanced judgment naturally influenced those around them, creating networks of more sophisticated and effective decision-making. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of this research is what it reveals about the nature of wisdom itself. Instead of seeing wisdom as accumulated knowledge or experience, we're beginning to understand it as something that emerges through patterns of genuine connection. This has profound implications for how we think about everything from education to governance to artificial intelligence. The implications extend to how we think about organizational design and group processes. Some organizations are now implementing what they call connection-conscious decision architecture, approaches that recognize the crucial role of authentic relationships in making effective choices. They're finding that this creates more adaptive and successful organizations than traditional decision-making models. This understanding is leading to new approaches in fields ranging from military strategy to environmental conservation. Organizations are creating what they call wisdom incubators, environments designed to foster the kind of genuine connections that enhance collective decision-making capacity. These aren't just meeting spaces, they're carefully crafted environments that support the emergence of deeper wisdom through connection. The research also challenges our cultural emphasis on individual expertise and rational analysis, while technical knowledge and logical thinking remain important. The science suggests that our most effective decisions emerge through networks of genuine connection. This has profound implications for how we think about everything from personal choices to global challenges. The invisible threads of connection reveal their most profound influence in the domain of moral behavior. A groundbreaking study in moral psychology uncovered something remarkable. When people maintain genuine connections, their capacity for ethical decision-making expands dramatically. But the real revelation came in understanding how this enhanced moral awareness spreads through communities. Dr. Michael Chen, studying ethical behavior in connected groups, made an unexpected discovery. He found that people who shared authentic connections didn't just make more ethical choices, they developed what he called moral resonance, where their capacity for understanding and responding to ethical challenges transcended individual moral frameworks. this wasn't just about being more ethical. It was about accessing deeper levels of moral wisdom. The breakthrough came when researchers began studying what they termed connection-enhanced ethics. They discovered that when people maintained genuine connections while facing moral decisions, their brains processed ethical information differently, creating what moral philosophers now call collective conscience fields, shared spaces of moral understanding that led to more nuanced and compassionate choices. Consider what happened when a global corporation implemented what they called connection ethics. Instead of traditional compliance training, they created opportunities for genuine connection between employees as they explored ethical challenges together. The results were transformative. Not only did ethical violations decrease, but employees began proactively identifying and addressing potential moral issues before they became problems. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Researchers discovered that this enhancement of ethical behavior through connection wasn't limited to professional settings. They observed what they called moral field effects, patterns where improved ethical awareness spread through social networks, influencing behavior even in casual interactions and personal decisions. A fascinating example emerged in a troubled urban neighborhood that created ethics circles, regular gatherings where residents could build authentic connections while discussing community challenges. Over time, they developed what participants described as collective moral intuition, a shared understanding that naturally led to more ethical and community-minded behavior. Crime rates dropped, pro-social behavior increased, and the entire community culture shifted toward greater ethical awareness. The science behind this phenomenon reveals something profound about human morality. While we often think of ethics as a matter of rules or individual conscience, our brains are actually designed to process moral decisions more effectively through connection with others. This understanding is leading to revolutionary approaches in fields ranging from business ethics to social justice. Consider how this insight transformed a traditional legal practice. Instead of focusing solely on regulations and compliance, they developed what they called connection-based ethical counsel. Clients and lawyers built genuine relationships as they worked through complex moral and legal challenges. The impact went beyond better legal outcomes. They began finding innovative solutions that served both justice and human dignity. The effects rippled outward in remarkable ways. People who experienced this connection-based approach to ethics became what researchers call moral catalysts in their communities. Their enhanced capacity for ethical understanding naturally influenced those around them, creating networks of more conscientious and compassionate behavior. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of this research is what it reveals about the nature of morality itself. Instead of seeing ethics as a set of abstract principles or individual choices, we're beginning to understand it as something that emerges through patterns of genuine connection. This has profound implications for how we think about everything from education to law to social policy. The implications extend to how we approach moral development and ethical training. Some organizations are now implementing what they call connection-conscious ethics education, approaches that recognize the crucial role of authentic relationships in developing moral wisdom. They're finding that this creates more ethical and humane organizations than traditional compliance-based approaches. This understanding is leading to new approaches in fields ranging from criminal justice to environmental ethics. Organizations are creating what they call moral incubators, environments designed to foster the kind of genuine connections that enhance collective ethical awareness. These aren't just discussion forums, they're carefully crafted spaces that support the emergence of deeper moral understanding through connection. The research also challenges our cultural emphasis on individual moral responsibility. While personal accountability remains important, the science suggests that our most ethical behavior emerges through networks of genuine connection. This has profound implications for how we think about everything from personal conduct to global ethical challenges. The invisible threads of connection reveal their ultimate truth in how they weave together every aspect of human existence. A comprehensive meta-analysis of connection research uncovered something profound. The patterns of connection we've explored, from healing to creativity, from wisdom to time perception, are not separate phenomena, but expressions of a single underlying reality. But the real revelation came in understanding what this means for humanity's future. Dr. Sarah Matthews, synthesizing research across multiple disciplines, made a remarkable discovery. She found that all the various resonance fields we've explored, whether in healing, creativity, decision-making, or moral behavior, were actually different manifestations of what she called unified connection consciousness. This wasn't just about finding similarities, it was about recognizing the fundamental unity of human connection itself. The breakthrough came when researchers began studying what they termed connection integration. They discovered that when communities maintained authentic connections across multiple domains simultaneously, they didn't just accumulate benefits, they experienced emergent properties that transcended individual areas of enhancement. This created what scientists now call holistic connection fields, environments where human potential could flourish in unprecedented ways. Consider what happened when a small city implemented what they called integrated connection design. Instead of treating different aspects of community life separately, they created opportunities for genuine connection that bridged health, education, creativity, and governance. The results were extraordinary. Not only did each area improve, but entirely new forms of social organization and human flourishing began to emerge. But here's where the story reaches its most profound turn. Researchers discovered that this integration of connection wasn't just creating better communities. It was actually accelerating human evolution. They observed what they called evolutionary field effects, patterns where enhanced human capabilities spread and developed at rates that defied conventional understanding. A fascinating example emerged in a global network of communities that created connection synthesis centers, places where people could explore and develop authentic connections across all domains of life. Over time, they began manifesting capabilities that researchers described as post-conventional human development, not supernatural powers, but natural human potential unlocked through deep integrated connection. The science behind this phenomenon reveals something profound about human nature and destiny. While we often think of evolution as a biological process, our greatest potential for development may lie in our capacity for authentic connection. This understanding is leading to revolutionary approaches in how we think about human development and social organization. Consider how this insight is transforming our approach to global challenges. Instead of treating issues like climate change, social inequality, and technological advancement as separate problems, forward-thinking organizations are developing what they call connection-based solutions, approaches that recognize that strengthening human connection might be the key to solving our most pressing problems. The implications ripple through every domain we've explored. Healthcare systems are recognizing that healing happens not just through medicine, but through networks of authentic connection. Educational institutions are discovering that learning flourishes when it grows through genuine human bonds. Businesses are finding that success comes not from competition, but from strengthening connections both within and beyond their organizations. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of this research is what it reveals about the future of human consciousness itself. Instead of seeing consciousness as individual and isolated, we're beginning to understand it as something that emerges and evolves through patterns of connection. This has profound implications for everything from spirituality to artificial intelligence to our understanding of reality itself. The implications extend to how we think about human purpose and potential. Some scientists are now suggesting that our capacity for connection might not just be a survival adaptation. It could be the leading edge of human evolution. They're finding that as we strengthen our ability to form authentic connections, we may be developing capabilities that previous generations could hardly imagine. This understanding is leading to new approaches in every field of human endeavor. Organizations worldwide are creating what they call evolution incubators, environments designed to foster the kind of integrated, authentic connections that enhance human potential across all dimensions. These aren't just experimental spaces, they're pioneering the next chapter of human development. The research challenges not just our current practices, but our fundamental understanding of what it means to be human. While individual achievement remains important, the science suggests that our greatest potential lies in our capacity for deep, authentic connection. This has profound implications for how we think about everything from personal development to the future of our species. Up next, you've got two more standout theory right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.